Chapter 21. More miserable. When a person is sad, it can be seen. As Akahara Kagura told his story, he looked very sad. At this moment, the boy didn't seem like someone plagued by jealousy and hatred, but simply like a child who had been abandoned. Kabuto remained silent. He thought his own fate had been very rough. Once, in order to raise more funds for the orphanage and to avoid causing trouble for the dean of the orphanage, Yakushi Nono, he voluntarily sacrificed himself and joined the root organization to become a spy ninja living on the edge of death. However, compared to Akahara Kagura, Kabuto felt so fortunate because his sacrifices were worthwhile. As the dean of the orphanage, Yakushi Nono always cared for him. This concern even sparked jealousy in another child with a similar fate. I don't know. Kabuto slightly lowered his head, his expression hesitant and uneasy. Over these years, I've never received any messages from the dean, nor have I ever seen her. Kabuto hesitated and thought for a while. Feeling he must apologize to the boy, I'm sorry, I never knew all this. This seemed like pity from a superior to an inferior. Kabuto never thought of himself as a superior. But in front of this boy forgotten by the dean, Kabuto felt like a lucky person who suddenly obtained a treasure without reason, while the boys struggled in vain to get the treasure. This made Kabuto feel like a thief. At this moment, a sense of guilt arose in his heart. Although he had never done anything wrong to Akahara Kagura, the excessive care from the dean made Kabuto feel warm and happy, but also guilty towards the forgotten boy, although somewhat guilty and apologetic. But now, Kabuto truly felt very happy. However, one's happiness might be easily obtained, but protecting it is not so simple, often requiring some hardships. You know nothing. A corner of Akahara Kagura's mouth revealed a mocking smile, as if he was looking at someone who knew nothing. What a coincidence. Dean also knows nothing. What? Kabuto felt his brain go blank and asked subconsciously, What do you mean? The dean also knows nothing. What does that mean? Kabuto, Akahara Kagura posed a critical question. When you joined the root organization a few years ago, you were younger than I am now. However, you have been in the root organization for more than 4 years and are now 13 or 14 years old, right? We all grow up fast, and our appearance changes compared to when we were children. Do you remember what you just said about how long it has been since you last saw the dean? Since I joined the root organization, Kabuto faintly felt that he and Dean were caught in a conspiracy. So, Akahara Kagura looked at Kabuto, coaxingly asked, Do you want to guess what method Dean wants to use to see you? Photo. Kabuto's eyes turned cold, almost gritting his teeth as he gave the answer. Dean must have asked for a photo of me after I grew up, but you let them give the dean a fake photo. Kabuto is a very smart person. He immediately remembered what Akahara Kagura mentioned about the photo at the training ground. In an instant, Kabuto also understood the conspiracy against him and the dean. A photo of him after growing up could cause a problem. Really smart, and you guessed right again. Akahara Kagura looked at Kabuto with admiration on his face and corrected. However, it wasn't me who gave the fake photo. It was Lord Danzo who gave the fake photo. I'm just a child. What decision can I make in the root organization? That's not necessarily true. Kabuto shook his head and responded. All the ninjas at the base are afraid of you, which proves that Lord Danzo values you highly. Whatever you want to do, he won't oppose it. Because you are jealous of Dean's concern, letting Lord Danzo give fake photos of you to Dean is quite normal. Akahara Kagura sighed, not bothering to refute, and continued leisurely. You're right about one thing. Dean does care about you a lot, always asking for your photos, wanting to know that you're safe and sound. Really? She's always thinking of you. But she has never asked about me. To ensure Dean keeps providing information to the root organization, Lord Danzo gradually replaced your photos with fake ones. The photos Dean saw were all forgeries. She has no idea what you really look like. If it had stopped there, it would have been fine. Just a fake needed to keep Dean from providing information to the root. However, You, the real deal, are still alive. Lord Danzo keeps sending you on dangerous missions, hoping you'd perish during them. But you've survived every single time. Such luck! Successfully completing missions time after time finally made Lord Danzo recognize your talent, wanting to make you a spy who can serve the root organization forever. But he faced a problem. If Lord Danzo wants you to stay in the root organization, you and the Dean are bound to meet eventually, and then all the lies will be exposed. When Akahara Kagura said this, she suddenly added, "It's not surprising, since it's a lie. It will be exposed sooner or later, but Lord Danzo will not make a mistake, so he will definitely deal with his own errors. So..." Kabuto pushed up his glasses on the bridge of his nose and said in a low voice, "You don't want me to live to see Dean, or you don't want Dean to live to see me." That's what Lord Danzo originally thought. Akahara Kagura, holding her arms, sighed. Lord Danzo prefers you because he believes that Dean has never been loyal enough, so he's been thinking about when to kill the Dean. Kabuto's body trembled slightly. This uncontrollable fear about the most important thing in life swept over him. Kabuto's fingers dug tightly into his flesh. A cold sweat slowly formed on his forehead, and he felt like he had guessed something. "Why? Are you telling me this? Do you want me to commit suicide now so that Dean can live?" "That's what I originally thought." Akahara Kagura raised his eyebrows indifferently and continued, "But then I heard something. Dean has always wanted to make a deal with Lord Danzo. She could do anything for Lord Danzo to get you out of the root organization in exchange for your freedom. Kabuto, I'm even more jealous of you now. Why didn't she think of rescuing me? Why didn't she think of rescuing me when I was sent to the root base, sent to be used as a subject for human experimentation?" Chapter 22, The Cruel Plan. Kabuto's mood was somewhat turbulent, because he never thought he would receive such gentle love. From the mouth of this young man, whose expression was full of hatred and jealousy, Kabuto had already received too much information, and his heart yearned even more for the Dean, who cared for him like a mother and was willing to give everything for him. However, now was not the time for emotional turbulence. What was most important now was to find out the young man's plan for revenge. Only by learning about Akahara Kagura's plan for revenge could there be hope to resolve the crisis that he and the Dean were about to face. According to the information, Shimura Danzo was definitely planning to kill the Dean, and the young man Akahara Kagura was just involved. If he could persuade the young man to give up those plans for revenge and join him in protecting the Dean, that would be ideal. While frowning and thinking, Kabuto tried to probe Akahara Kagura. "You've never met Dean, have you? Maybe it's because you left the orphanage too long ago." Kabuto seemed to find a direction and said, "There is another possibility. Lord Danzo secretly deceived Dean, telling the Dean that you had already died long ago. Kagura, we are all children from the orphanage. We all understand the care of Dean. Dean would never abandon a child without reason. This guy makes sense." If Akahara Kagura really was someone from the Konoha orphanage, he felt that what Kabuto said was somewhat accurate. A few more words, and he could be persuaded by Kabuto. Unfortunately, Akahara Kagura didn't want to play a villain who could be persuaded by others. Akahara Kagura only wanted to play a child who had gone astray and could not turn back. "Shut up!" Akahara Kagura's palm suddenly reached out and grabbed Kabuto's neck. The young man's eyes suddenly became fierce, pressing Kabuto against the wall, and said in a low voice, "Kabuto, do not disrespect Lord Danzo, or I will kill you right now." The young man looked contemptuously at Kabuto, who was powerless in his hands, and then slowly let go of him. "Humph! I knew I should have killed you back at the training ground." Cough, 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 cough. Kabuto lowered his head and coughed forcefully a few times, his eyes flickering slightly, and said, "Then why didn't you kill me? Lord Danzo probably wouldn't blame you. That would be letting you off too easily." A photo sparked from the fingertips of Akahara Kagura, displaying the appearance of Kabuto, the very one that Akahara Kagura had seized in the training ground. Want to guess what I'm going to do? This is your photo, the real you. Unfortunately, the dean doesn't know who the person in the photo is. She only believes that this is an imposter of Kabuto, so she will only think you are a stranger. Akihara Kagura twirled the photo with his fingers, casually speaking his plan. I just need to deliver this photo to the dean, and under the name of Lord Danzo, order her to kill the person in the photo, and agree to let you leave the root organization. Kabuto's face changed color. Seeing the change in Kabuto's face, Akihara Kagura's smile deepened. Only after our most respected dean kills you will she realize the whole truth. She will know that the person she killed with her own hands is the real Kabuto, the one she has always been concerned about. Kabuto's face turned pale. Anyone would know what kind of blow this would deal to Yakushi Nono. Perhaps after she kills Kabuto, she might commit suicide. It was a cruel plot. In his past life memories, Akihara Kagura remembered that this fratricidal case was personally planned by Danzo, hoping for both Kabuto and Yakushi Nono to perish together. Unfortunately, the plan went awry. Yakushi Nono did not recognize Kabuto. When she desperately tried to kill him, she was critically injured by a counterattack from Kabuto. With extraordinary learning abilities, Kabuto's combat strength far surpassed that of a regular medical ninja like Yakushi Nono. However, Kabuto recognized the dean. As Kabuto desperately tried to save the dead, Yakushi Nono, but due to the fake photo, did not recognize him and treated him as a stranger. This dealt a great blow to Kabuto, making him feel his life was meaningless. Now, Akihara Kagura told Kabuto the truth about the self-destructive massacre in advance, even adding a bit of his own drama to it, creating a new and important bond between himself, Kabuto, and Yakushi Nono. This way, in the future, he would have the opportunity to use Kabuto. Even if these lies are exposed, it doesn't matter. Akihara Kagura could simply confess and admit that he also saved Kabuto and Yakushi Nono. According to memories from a past life, Kabuto is not an ungrateful person. My plan is all laid out to you. Akihara Kagura patted Kabuto on the shoulder and continued with a smile. Making someone kill the person they care about the most will definitely cause them pain, right? You're telling me? Kabuto clenched his teeth in anger, staring at the young man in front of him. You're telling me all this. Aren't you afraid your plan will fail? I could explain the truth to the dean. It doesn't matter. Akihara Kagura spread his hands in a confident manner. If you successfully recognize each other, she will be very happy to see you, right? Then, after you tell her all the truth, at her happiest moment, I will kill you myself. After all, I just want her to taste the bitterness of pain. Akihara Kagura didn't really care about these things and rarely spoke the truth. I just need the result I want. The process leading to it doesn't matter. Kabuto, the moment I knew about you, your fate was already sealed. Kabuto slowly bowed his head. It must be admitted that Akihara Kagura indeed should have this confidence. According to Kabuto's observation, all members of the root organization were afraid to speak out under the threat of Akihara Kagura, proving that Kagura's strength should not be underestimated. Moreover, there was also the mysterious and unpredictable would release Kekiai Genkai. However, if the young man before him was confident in killing him, then he and the dean, Yakushi Nono, might still have a chance to survive. Let's go. We'll go see Lord Danzo first. Akihara Kagura took the lead towards the depths of the root organization's base, casually warning as he spoke. You better not talk too much in front of Lord Danzo, and don't show any disrespect, or Lord Danzo might have me kill you on the spot. Kabuto bowed his head in silence. Of course, Kabuto wouldn't do anything unnecessary. Now, Kabuto was very clear that what he needed most was to keep a low profile, find a way to meet with Dean as soon as possible, and tell the Dean about Akihara Kagura's story. If possible, Kabuto hoped that the Dean and Akihara Kagura, the abandoned child, could resolve their misunderstanding and increase their chances of survival in the future. Chapter 23. Why you haven't submitted your application form yet? Deep within the base of the root organization, Shimura Danzo continued to be busy in his office. When Shimura Danzo saw Akahara Kagura and Kabuto enter, his first thought was to scold them. "Hey, I heard you always drive away the people who train with you. It's a waste of time." Akahara Kagura shook his head, his face suddenly a bit unhappy. "Those guys are too weak. Training with them for half a month is not as good as half an hour of instruction from Lord Danzo." Humph. Shimura Danzo nodded with some complacency and continued. "Tomorrow you are going to take the Chunin exam. Don't disappoint me." "So soon?" Akahara Kagura took out a piece of paper from his arms, surprised. "I haven't submitted the application form for the Chunin exam yet. Should I submit it before the exam tomorrow?" "Huh." Shimura Danzo's face turned a bit strange, feeling like he was going to be infuriated by this kid. "Why haven't you done something simple like submitting the application form? It should be submitted a week before the exam. Why haven't you done it?" Akahara Kagura was silent for a while, then said in a low voice, "Because Lord Danzo did not allow me to leave the root base and training ground, I didn't know who to give it to." Shimura Danzo suddenly lost his anger. The old man, somewhat helplessly, reached out and took the application form from Akahara Kagura's hand. "Give it to me. I'll deliver it to the Chunin exam examiner." In such a situation, Shimura Danzo could only help by pulling some strings. "By the way," Akahara Kagura quickly raised another question. "I'm not very familiar with the roads in the village. Lord Danzo, do you have time to take me to the exam site tomorrow?" Shimura Danzo really did not want to appear in crowded places. This old man, who preferred to hide in the shadows, saw Kabuto standing next to him, and his expression immediately turned cold. "Kabuto, I have a new task for you. Tomorrow, you will take to the Chunin exam site." "Yes." Kabuto bowed his head and agreed. "Kabuto, why do you seem a little reluctant?" The young man couldn't help but chuckle softly, his lips curling into a sinister smile. "I've been taking good care of you, haven't I? Don't want to accompany me? Or don't want to live?" "Hey!" Shimura Danzo sternly stopped Akahara Kagura's murderous intent, scolding. "Kabuto is still useful to the root. Without my orders, you must not kill indiscriminately." "I understand." Akahara Kagura agreed with a smile. Only then did Shimura Danzo feel relieved. He turned his head to look at Kabuto. The old man continued coldly. "After you take to the Chunin exam site tomorrow, go to the land of Earth to look for an opportunity and infiltrate Rock Village to stand by." Yes, Kabuto had no choice but to accept the order. "All right, go out and wait." Shimura Danzo waved his hand, signaling Kabuto to leave the office, leaving only himself and Akahara Kagura. The old man's gaze immediately became wandering. When Shimura Danzo spoke of this matter, his face was somewhat somber. "How is your learning of the dragon jutsu I taught you? If you can't learn it, there's no need to force yourself to master the first Hokage's ninjutsu." Shimura Danzo was actually a bit angry, because the old man believed that he couldn't teach Akahara Kagura the first Hokage Hashiramas would release ninjutsu through that abstract teaching method. He asked Sarutobi Hiruzen for permission to view the Scroll of Seals book written by past the first Hokage. However, Hiruzen refused Danzo's request. Shimura Danzo had reasons to suspect that Sarutobi Hiruzen was worried about the growing strength of Akahara Kagura, fearing that the power of the root could threaten his position as Hokage. This made Shimura Danzo's situation quite tricky. If he wanted to become Hokage, he had to ensure Akahara Kagura became stronger. To make Akahara Kagura stronger, he needed to obtain the Scroll of Seals. And to get the Scroll of Seals, he had to become Hokage. This turned into a vicious cycle. Shimura Danzo could only temporarily give up on the Scroll of Seals and hope for Akahara Kagura's natural talent. Wishing he could independently develop powerful would release ninjutsu using his Kekkei Genkai. You could try to develop your own would release techniques. When Shimura Danzo spoke of this, he sounded like a patient and persuasive team leader. "I have seen your talent in learning ninjutsu. The wood release techniques you develop might even rival those of the first Hokage. Yes, Lord Danzo. Akahara Kagura nodded, hesitating before explaining. But I might have already mastered a kind of wood dragon technique. I'm just not sure if it's the one Lord Danzo taught. However, its power is certainly astounding. Oh! Shimura Danzo raised an eyebrow. Why didn't you tell me about this? Before Shimura Danzo could ask, Akahara Kagura seemed to understand his superior's doubts and quickly added, A few days ago, I mastered the wood dragon technique, and I've been wanting to tell Lord Danzo. As he said this, Akahara Kagura appeared somewhat unhappy, but those who accompanied me in training ground wouldn't let me meet Lord Danzo. Shimura Danzo remained silent, not knowing what to say. Because what the root ninja said was true, Shimura Danzo, to avoid awkwardness, indeed did not want to meet him. Who would have thought this kid would actually succeed? Shimura Danzo changed the subject, praising him. Never mind him, as long as you can master the techniques I taught you. Yes. Akihara Kagura nodded quickly, showing as much respect and admiration for Shimura Danzo as possible. As long as Lord Danzo can guide me, I will work hard in that direction. Whatever the technique, I will master it. The color of Shimura Danzo's face immediately improved a lot. However, after pondering for a while, the old man decided to avoid teaching the wood-release ninjutsu for now. Later, when I have time, I will look through the scroll of seals left by the first Hokage, and then I will teach you new ninjutsu. This is Shimura Danzo trying to save face for himself, pretending he could access the scroll of seals when in fact he couldn't, and trying to maintain his dignity in front of his subordinates. Yes, Akahara Kagura would not expose his superior. At any time, one should leave enough room for their superior to maneuver. Although Lord Danzo does not have the scroll of seals at this moment, what if he gets it in the future? Don't be too quick or eager in contradicting him. If it really comes to that, if Lord Danzo can't get the scroll of seals, then he himself should think of a way to get it for Lord Danzo. Go rest. Shimura Danzo waved his hand, signaling Akahara Kagura to leave, and finally reminded him, during the Chunin exams, you absolutely cannot lose to that kid named Uchiha Itachi. Can I kill him? Akahara Kagura's retort sounded more like a reply to Shimura Danzo. Shimura Danzo shook his head and sighed softly. Don't always think about killing, especially when some people are still of use. Like this little guy Uchiha Itachi is still useful to me. Chapter 24. Because you pay my meal, here's an info you will definitely like. The next day, Konoha Village. Inside a Chiraku Ramen, a boy was sitting in the ramen shop, slurping his noodles with great relish. A young man with glasses was sitting next to him, picking up noodles with his chopsticks and biting into them seriously. Even after taking a bite, he would take a napkin to wipe the corners of his mouth. This way of eating was undoubtedly more refined than the boy next to him, inevitably making others feel that the way the boy ate noodles was a bit rude. So gentle. A girl was looking at the refined young man with stars in her eyes. The owner of Ichiraku Ramen was a middle-aged man, known in the village as Tuchi or the handmaid boss. The girl speaking was his only daughter, Ayam. Tuchi seemed to feel it was a bit impolite and gently patted the girl speaking. Ayam, don't stare at the customers like that. It's disturbing them eating their ramen. I know. Ayam pouted unhappily and then sneakily looked at the boy who was eating somewhat rudely. He's quite good-looking. Why does he eat so voraciously? Because your family's ramen tastes good. The boy praised sincerely. I feel like I have energy after eating a bowl of ramen, though it might be because I skipped breakfast. Thanks for the compliment. The handmaid boss could only continue to thank the customer as usual. I've never seen you before. Ayam was somewhat curious about the boy of her age. Are you a ninja from another village? Here in Konoha for the Chunin exams. I am a member of the village's Umbu. The boy boasted about his identity unabashedly. The boy seemed to fear that Ayam didn't understand, and earnestly explained to her. Umbu. You know what that is? It's the darkest apartment in the village. The kind that appears in people's homes in the dead of night and kills the entire family. Iam's eyes widened. The noodle shop owner struggled to open his eyes, somewhat surprised that, having been in Konoha for many years, he had never heard such a strange saying about the umbu. The noodle shop owner faintly felt that something was not quite right. Just then, a white-haired umbu ninja came over with his teammates and corrected, "Hey, don't slander the umbu's reputation here. Akahara Kagura, I remember you're not an umbu ninja, right?" Am I not an umbu ninja?" The young Akahara Kagura looked up in surprise, recognizing the familiar person. He narrowed his eyes and chuckled. "Kakashi-senpai, are you saying that the umbu training class is not part of the umbu's operational sequence?" Hatake Kakashi remained silent, unable to answer. Although everyone thought that the Root Division was not officially part of the umbu, its official name was the umbu training class, and theoretically, Root ninjas were indeed part of the umbu organization. This little guy seemed to have become more polite than last time. At least he was willing to address himself as senpai. "Long time no see." The young Akahara Kagura greeted Hatake Kakashi enthusiastically, then turned his gaze to Tenzo beside him. "Yo, traitor, you're here too. Long time no see. Don't worry. Lord Danzo won't let me kill recklessly in the village. You're safe." Hatake Kakashi withdrew his earlier judgment. Tenzo hesitated, unsure whether to greet him or not. Sizzle, sizzle. Yakushi Kabuto still sat at the table, eating ramen in a refined manner. "You're supposed to be at the Chunin exam today, right?" Hatake Kakashi walked over, curiously asking, "Do you have time to eat ramen here? The first written test should be starting soon, right?" "It's okay." Akahara Kagura indifferently shook his head and said, "What's the difference between entering early or late? Anyway, I don't know anything on the exam paper." Everyone present fell silent. "So why do you have the nerve to say that?" "That, about the Chunin exam?" Amidst the hesitation, Tenzo, who was standing nearby, still spoke up to remind, "If you're late, it seems you'll be disqualified from the exam." "Oh." Akahara Kagura nodded in understanding, her gaze turning towards Yakushi Kabuto, still calm. "Kabuto, didn't you hear what others said? Didn't you have breakfast? Haven't you eaten ramen before? Didn't you bring money to pay?" Such a bit of a nasty character. Little Iam couldn't help but retort. But when she saw the boy's gaze slowly moving towards her, she got scared and quickly bowed her head to apologize. "I'm sorry." "No problem." Akahara Kagura shook his head, pointing to the empty bowl on his table. "So, as a sign of your apology, can you let me off the bill today? Otherwise, I might have to run a tab to rush for the exam. Just send the bill to umbu." Little Iam was dumbfounded. "I'll pay." 3 voices spoke up at the same time. One sounded somewhat helpless. One sounded a bit restrained and uneasy. The last one sounded untroubled. Hatake Kakashi's hand reached into his pocket, surprised to see Tenzo beside him also taking out his wallet, and then looked at Kabuto, who was paying. "Seems like you're quite popular." Little Iam took the money, rarely praising the boy. "Maybe." The young Akahara Kagura seems quite self-satisfied. "Actually, the 3 people who wanted to pay for me are all people I want to kill." Everyone present fell silent. This kid really knows how to offend people. "Go take the exam quickly." Hatake Kakashi frowned. If it weren't for the precedent set by Tenzo, Kakashi would not want to deal with such an arrogant kid and pull him out of the hellish place like Root Organization. "Let's go." Akahara Kagura waved to Kabuto and took a glance at Kakashi and Tenzo. "What a pity. You two were a step late in paying. If you want to get things done by treating someone to a meal in the future, you better be quicker in paying than others." Hatake Kakashi and Tenzo exchanged a puzzled look. At this moment, they didn't understand what this kid meant. However, Kabuto, the person who paid first, soon realized the advantage of paying for Akahara Kagura's meal. "Kabuto, I will still kill you in the Dean Yakushi no, but considering you treated me to a bowl of ramen today, I can tell you a piece of useful information first. Akihara Kagura's gaze shifted to the unflappable Kabuto, and he continued leisurely. The rock village you're planning to infiltrate, the dean, is also there. Chapter 25. Uchiha Itachi, you really did not disappoint me. People often have low expectations of villains. Even if a villain does something good incidentally, it can change people's attitudes towards them. Kabuto believes that Akihara Kagura is not a completely cold-blooded child. He is a boy with a kind heart. Akihara Kagura, who has always resented himself and Yakushi Nono, is willing to share important information about the dean with himself. Perhaps the boy's murderous intent is not so strong, just clouded by jealousy and hatred. Kabuto thought for a while and decided to show some kindness. I have collected some information about the Chunin exam. The first written test is likely under the surveillance of the examiners, testing the examinee's ability to gather criminal investigation information. What a coincidence! Akihara Kagura raised an eyebrow and couldn't help but smile. It seems I'm not very good at gathering information, so this written test will be a bit difficult for me. Then, Kabuto adjusted his glasses and said softly, "Then, may I help you with a little something?" Akihara Kagura's smile deepened. If you really want to help someone worth helping, you must respect the person asking for help, not offer help in a condescending manner. Kabuto really understands human relationships. But there's another rule in human relationships. If someone owes you a big favor, it's best not to let them help you with a small favor. This creates a qualitative exchange for a quantitative one, and in the end, neither party will be satisfied. I don't need it. Akihara Kagura's expression suddenly became cold. The boy refused Kabuto, saying coldly, "I can handle such small matters myself. Go to the rock village and carry out the task Lord Danzo has given you." "All right." Kabuto slowly nodded. Akihara Kagura touched his chin, looking back at the distant Ichiraku ramen shop. I wonder how long Kakashi-senpai will take to eat at Ichiraku ramen. Kabuto turned his head back in confusion. The entry area for the Chunin exams. The room for the first written exam was very large. Groups of genin were gathered here, chatting leisurely. While everyone in the room was chatting, their gazes, more or less, would occasionally drift towards a figure in the corner, a very handsome young man. Uchiha Itachi. The attention of the entire room was mostly focused on him. The genin candidates present were, for the most part, older than Uchiha Itachi. Seeing this 10-year-old kid in the exam venue, they felt somewhat annoyed, especially since he belonged to the Uchiha clan, which the villagers disliked and feared. The genius of the Uchiha clan. Is it true that the kid is taking the exam alone? Humph. The Uchihas always think too highly of themselves. It's normal for them to think they can pass the Chunin exams alone. Such arrogance for a kid. Uchiha Itachi stood quietly in his place. Despite being only a 10-year-old boy, Uchiha Itachi showed more patience than the older genin, seemingly able to stand quietly forever. Even though there were continuous discussions about him, he seemed completely indifferent, as if he couldn't hear anything, unconcerned about others' opinions. Clang! The room's door suddenly burst open. With the door kicked open, the entire room instantly fell silent. A figure with white hair stepped into the room, clearly impatient. "Shut up! This room is the noisiest in the entire building." The group of genin immediately fell silent, not daring to make a sound. Because the newcomer was wearing a green jonin uniform of Konoha, not someone these genin could casually discuss or mock. Even many genins recognized his identity. Hatake Kakashi, a genius jonin in the village with great fame. It said that he graduated from the academy at the age of 5, became a chunin at 6, and a jonin at 12. In the ninja world, he is often referred to as cold-blooded Kakashi or Sharingan Kakashi. In terms of both fame and strength, Hatake Kakashi far surpasses the other jonin in the village. The first round of the Chunin exam has changed venues. This jonin waved his hand at them, showing impatience. "You can go now. Head over to the Hokage building to see the latest notice." What? Why would the venue change suddenly? We didn't receive any prior notice. Everyone shut up. This Konoha Jonin coldly silenced a group of noisy genin, his eyes showing obvious disdain. This is a Hokage's order. This place will be used as a meeting room, and an allies meeting is about to be convened. Do you want to delay important village matters to you genins? The genin on site were seething with anger but dared not speak. Kakashi-senpai. Two adults then stepped forward. These two adults were supposed to assist in the written part of the Chunin exam. They were not genin but were in fact Chunin disguised among the genin. After all, the first written test mainly tested the genin's reconnaissance and intelligence-gathering abilities. These two Chunin would pretend to be genin during the test and write down all the correct answers to the questions, providing the intelligence gathered by the genin. The Chunin responsible for assisting with the written test have also reported to the new venue. Hatake Kakashi's expression was filled with impatience. Seemingly seeing through their identities but not exposing them, he continued loudly, "All right, get moving. Don't be late for the new venue. We need to clear this place immediately for Konoha's allies meeting." The group of genin could only quietly leave in groups. Even when they left, they didn't notice any Chunin maintaining order around them, indicating this place was indeed no longer the venue for the Chunin exam written test. The group of genin obediently headed to the Hokage building to check the new venue notice. Unnoticed by anyone, two Chunin responsible for maintaining order were sprawled out, unconscious in a small attic near the stairs. The entire written test venue's entry area quickly became deserted. Hatake Kakashi glanced around and his gaze fell on Uchiha Itachi, the only one who hadn't moved. Kid, why aren't you going to the new examination hall?" "What new examination hall?" Uchiha Itachi slowly raised his head, but the gentleness of youth was gone from his eyes. He asked in a deep voice, "Who are you? Why deceive them into going to a new examination hall? That's quite rude to your senpai, isn't it?" Hatake Kakashi stretched lazily, seemingly a bit displeased. "Kid, even if you are a genius of the Uchiha clan, you should show some respect to your seniors, right? The jonin in the village wouldn't be as disrespectful as you." Uchiha Itachi's hand moved towards his ninja tool bag, shaking his head. "The Chunin exam is a major event for the village. It's unlikely that they would change the examination hall, just as the exam is about to start. The most important thing is..." Uchiha Itachi's eyes faintly glowed red, and his voice became more serious. "Although your transformation technique is clever, under the scrutiny of the Sharingan, Tethe..." Hatake Kakashi's figure instantly turned into smoke and dissipated. A young man revealed his true form, with a smile at the corner of his mouth. "Hello there, Uchiha Itachi. Lord Danzo is right. You indeed did not disappoint me." Chapter 26. Don't call him a Lord Danzo. Uchiha Itachi's gaze sharpened. He had heard this name before. Once, while accompanying Uchiha Shursui in an exam, he encountered a severely injured ninja. From this ninja, he learned that Danzo had done things harmful to Konoha and was even attacked by Danzo's subordinates. Eventually, the injured ninja was killed. To avoid conflict in Konoha, everything was left unresolved. Uchiha Itachi later learned about Shimura Danzo's identity. He knew that Shimura Danzo served as an advisor to the Hokage, a position of high authority and power. This boy, is he under Shimura Danzo's command? Why are all of Shimura Danzo's subordinates bad people? This boy looks about my age, yet he deceives even the genin participating in the exam. Why do you look so upset? Akihara Kagura looked at Uchiha Itachi's face and suddenly laughed. It seems you also know about Lord Danzo. Do you have some dissatisfaction with him? No. Uchiha Itachi quickly shook his head, his expression easing. I just don't understand. Why do you deceive them? Why? Akihara Kagura tilted his head, pondering this strange question. I just want to reduce the number of competitors in the exam. Using a little trick isn't strange, right? Don't all ninjas use any means necessary to achieve their goals? Uchiha Itachi was at a loss for words. This genius of the Uchiha clan thought for a second and then said, "But the village won't let this happen. This Chunin exam won't just have the two of us as participants. The exam time will probably be postponed." TSK? Akahara Kagura looked around the empty room, his mood seeming a bit more relaxed. "Maybe, but with fewer people here, I can relax a bit." Hokage Tower. The Hokage's office had several screens. These screens were showing everything happening in the Chunin exam written test waiting area. A group of Konoha's hierarchists watched Akahara Kagura's ingenious maneuvers in astonishment. He's a very smart kid. The third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, was the first to laugh, even taking an interest in commenting. "Such a thing happening in the Chunin exam? Sigh. This won't do. What's wrong with this kid?" If this is the case, there will only be 2 participants in the entire Chunin exam. This will disgrace our village in front of other ninja villages. It's absurd that there are fewer examinees than proctors in the exam. How can the exam go on? We must send someone to stop this immediately. The 2 Hokage advisors sitting next to him discussed fervently. They didn't find Akahara Kagura's actions amusing, but rather a potential cause for chaos. "Danzo, what do you think?" Sarutobi Hiruzen turned his gaze to his old friend, asking, "This is a kid from your class. What's his name? Let's stop this first." Danzo coldly ignored Hiruzen's teasing, continuing on his own. Even if the talented wish to showcase their strength, they need someone to contrast them. Ibiki Marino. Hiruzen looked at a group of special jonin waiting for orders and called out a name. "You are the chief examiner for the first stage of the Chunin selection exam. Deal with this incident." "Yes." Ibiki Marino stood up, nodding respectfully. Ibiki's face bore scars from wartime, appearing somewhat terrifying. Yet he was a man who spoke and acted with a certain gentleness. "Although I think having only 2 examinees left in the entire exam hall still aligns with the meaning of the Chunin selection, this is after all an exam that requires scale." Ibiki Marino looked at the Konoha hierarchists present, who seemed to approve of his proposal, and continued to say, "I propose to let Uchiha Itachi and A pass directly into the second round." Among them, A deceived all the examinees. Only Uchiha Itachi was not fooled. Both of them participated in the exam alone as genin, so there should be no need to test their will in the final question. As for the other genin who were deceived, rearrange the exam for them. Okay, the third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, nodded in satisfaction. Approve. The 2 Hokage advisors also nodded in satisfaction. Approve. After the Hokage's aide, Shimura Danzo, nodded, he reminded, and also Ibiki Marino, "Don't call that kid A in front of him. Just call him Akahara Kagura." "Ah." Ibiki Marino looked at Shimura Danzo with some confusion and cautiously asked, "But on the list of Chunin exam, his name is written as A?" "That's what he wrote himself." Shimura Danzo, a bit worried about Ibiki Marino calling out the name A and might cause trouble, reminded, "Only I can call him A. You just call him Akahara Kagura. After all, that kid always tends to cause trouble just because of a name." However, on the Chunin exam registration form, that kid honestly wrote A, so Danzo no longer doubted whether the kid didn't want to use the name A. Yes, Ibiki Marino could only agree. Below the Hokage building, a group of genin were eagerly searching for the notification of the new exam venue. However, this group of genin soon received the news that they had been deceived, and while they initially wanted to curse and complain, they ended up being scolded by the chief examiner. "You were fooled by such a simple transformation technique." Ibiki Marino looked at the group of genin who still wanted to scold, and the scar on his left face trembled with anger. "Your group of examinees are truly the worst batch in the history of Konoha." A group of genin dared not make a sound. Hatake Kakashi, after finishing ramen with Tenzo, saw a group of running genin glaring at him, and some even wanted to start a fight. These genin, why are they hostile towards him? "Hey, calm down!" Someone loudly stopped the group of genin, sternly reprimanding. This is the real Jonin Kakashi. You deceived guys hurry back to the exam site. What happened? Tenzo asked curiously. Ibiki Marino glanced at Hatake Kakashi, feeling a bit embarrassed. A candidate named Akahara Kagura transformed into the appearance of Kakashi, knocked out the Chunin maintaining order, and drove all the genin candidates out of the examination room. Hatake Kakashi's forehead twitches. What is going on with that kid? He was slandering Umbu at Ichiraku Ramen in the morning, and how has it been so long that he started to frame him again? On the other hand, a group of genin candidates were still rushing to the venue. Akihara Kagura and Uchiha Itachi also learned that they had passed the first round of the written exam without having to take it, and they could head to the venue of the second exam early. It's a bit of a pity. Akihara Kagura seemed to have more to say. This is the only round that might have stopped me from passing the exam, and I still had many cheating methods I haven't used yet. Cheating? Uchiha Itachi didn't quite understand, as he had always been a top student. He asked curiously, "The written exam is very simple. Why cheat? In this world, what you think is simple, for others, can be very difficult." Akihara Kagura looked deeply at Uchiha Itachi, as if he wanted to remember his expression at this moment. Chapter 27. Food Problem Forest of Death. The venue for the second round of the Chunin exam. Konoha has never changed the location for the second round of the exam, nor could they find a better place than this to test the comprehensive abilities of the genin teams in a wilderness environment. Just as the name of this venue suggests, the Forest of Death also harbors dangers that could lead to death, including the perilous forest environment and the wild beasts that can be found everywhere, and rivals who might appear at any moment. All eyes at the venue were on two individuals. One was Akihara Kagura, and the other was Uchiha Itachi. These two 10-year-old boys were the only ones who attended the exam alone, and were the only ones exempted from the first round. The other genin had struggled through the first round of written tests, only to find these two kids waiting for them at the second round without having to take any test, which seemed somewhat unfair. That kid. Is there something special about him? I've never seen or heard of him before. Why do I feel like Uchiha Itachi and that kid are somewhat at odds? Could he be a genius like Uchiha Itachi? It's hard to say. After all, someone who takes the Chunin exam alone and gets the approval of the higher UPS of the village must not be any ordinary kid. That kid is the one who tricked us into changing the exam venue. Someone among the genin candidates suddenly blurted this out, instantly arousing collective excitement, and they looked at Akihara Kagura with displeasure. "Hey, that kid." "It was me." Akihara Kagura admitted with a smile to what he had done, and extended his hand in invitation, saying, "Welcome. To all of you who have troubles with me, don't be too arrogant, kid." Several guys who obviously didn't seem easy to mess with walked over. Fortunately, the proctor of the second exam stopped the conflict. The proctor of the second exam was named Yamashiro Aoba, dressed in the green uniform of a special jonin of Konoha, wearing a pair of sunglasses on his face. Yamashiro Aoba looked at a group of genin who wanted to cause trouble and said softly, "If you want to fight, you'll have plenty of time after you enter the examination room. Even..." Yamashiro Aoba raised a stack of thick papers in his hand and continued, "If you sign this consent form, even if you accidentally kill your opponent in the examination room, no one will hold you responsible afterward. Of course, anyone who signs this consent form might face accidents during this exam and will be solely responsible for their own safety." Proctor Akihara Kagura raised his hand with a smile and asked, "Does that mean we can kill people in the second exam?" Yamashiro Aoba frowned and pondered. Every year in the Chunin exams, there are always some arrogant people who think they can stand out, but they often end up dying due to their arrogance. Even a genius might die in the forest of death. However, Yamashiro Aoba was not a crazily aggressive ninja. In fact, he was somewhat timid and cautious. After thinking for a while, he still nodded. "By the rules, yes, you can." Yamashiro Aoba looked at the young man and gently persuaded, "The most important aspect of this exam is not the combat competition. It also tests your wilderness survival skills. Even if you can get the pass-through item from your competitors, you might not be able to avoid the dangers of the forest and reach the endpoint of the exam. The rules of the second stage of the Chunin exam are quite simple. The struggle for the Heaven and Earth scrolls. All genin teams participating in the exam will receive 2 different types of scrolls, the Heaven Scroll and the Earth Scroll. Within 5 days, any squad must find a way to survive in the Forest of Death and snatch other team scrolls. Collect both Heaven and Earth scrolls, and inside the Forest of Death exam venue, you are not restricted in the methods you use against competitors. There is only one condition for victory. The team must hold both Heaven and Earth scrolls within the stipulated 5 days and pass through the long Forest of Death to reach the High Tower, where the Chief Examiner is located. There are many conditions for elimination. First, if a team does not reach the endpoint with both Heaven and Earth scrolls within the stipulated 5 days, all members will be eliminated. Second, if there is a lack of team members or a team member is unable to move, that is to say, to become a victorious team, all members must reach the destination. Third, teams that open the Heaven and Earth scrolls before reaching the High Tower will be disqualified, because once you become a Chunin, you may come into contact with highly confidential documents. This is a test of your ability to keep secrets. A friendly reminder, opening the scrolls during the exam will lead to strange occurrences. Similarly, to give you time to adapt, all examinees will enter the exam venue through several different entrances. This exam will definitely eliminate more than half of the teams. I hope everyone will be careful. I will wait for the victors at the High Tower at the endpoint. The candidates present quickly became noisy. Uchiha Itachi's gaze remained unchanged, only more seriously arranging his ninja tool bag, as he promised his father that he could pass the Chunin exam. Akihara Kagura's eyes also showed no change, just signing the consent form with his head down, seemingly indifferent to the danger he might encounter in the Forest of Death. There were not a few who set their sights on the 2 young men, Uchiha Itachi and Akihara Kagura, as they made up 2 teams, each holding a type of scroll. Compared to competing with other teams, the odds of 3 people ganging up on one seemed higher, only there were a bit too many people eyeing those 2 kids. Indeed, too many wolves and not enough meat. Of course, some had very peculiar points of focus. Where do we get the foods? A chubby boy loudly asked Yamashiro Aoba. Yamashiro Aoba, in response to the candidate's question, answered quite seriously, it's wilderness survival. The resources in the Forest of Death are plentiful, enough for you to be self-sufficient. The genin present felt these were minor issues. After all, they had all been out on some missions and had learned wilderness survival skills, so these little things were not a problem at all. Perhaps only one person thought this might be a problem. Akihara Kagura frowned and began to ponder life, wondering if there was a genin team wanting to cook. He could join that team and win easily. Akihara Kagura could fish, but was not good at cooking it. All along, Akihara Kagura never had to worry about cooking. Back in the research base, Orochimaru always kept him healthy. Later, when he was in the Root organization, the Roots base also had its own canteen. Although the food quality might not be very good, it was enough to survive. Akihara Kagura looked over the genin present. If he couldn't cook, couldn't he find a way to get some food? The resources in the Forest of Death were enough for self-sufficiency, so he could definitely find something to eat. Chapter 28. Danzo, this child should be given to Hiruzen. The gates to the Forest of Death slowly opened. A group of genin swiftly rushed in from their respective entrances. The competition in this exam was fierce. Entering early meant gaining an advantage, whether it was to familiarize oneself with the environment or to set traps within the forest. Even Uchiha Itachi was no exception. Only Akihara Kagura walked leisurely into the exam area, weighing the earth scroll in his hand and calmly observing the depths of the dark Forest of Death. "Hey, kids!" A female ninja responsible for opening the exam gates seemed impatient with Akihara Kagura's slow pace and scolded, "Hurry up and go in. If you're any slower, you might get killed tonight." Akihara Kagura turned back to look at her. The female ninja was wearing a khaki trench coat with a mesh shirt underneath and mesh stockings on her legs that were visible. Her light purple hair was messily tied into a bun, making her appear not too old. "Hurry up!" The female ninja's expression showed impatience. Watching Akahara Kagura just stepping into the exam area, she forcefully closed the gate and patted her hands. "Big sister, what's your name?" Akahara Kagura stood inside, smiling amiably at the female ninja. "Huh!" The female ninja was surprised by the kid's boldness. Then her face broke into a playful smile. "Kid, taking part in such a dangerous exam and still so bold. My name is Mitarashi Anko. If you make it out alive, treat me to dumplings. I'll remember you." Akahara Kagura didn't mention anything about treating her to a meal. He hadn't mistaken her identity. This female ninja was Mitarashi Anko, once a disciple of Orochimaru, and she carried a trace of Orochimaru's chakra. In a way, this Mitarashi Anko, once a colleague, was still a current colleague. He thought of introducing her to the old superior when there was a chance. "He's quite a spirited kid." Mitarashi Anko tilted her head, squinting her eyes with a smile. "Then do your best and try not to die too early in the forest of death." "Yeah, I'll remember you." Akahara Kagura nodded and repeated his words. Just when Mitarashi Anko was about to say something, he saw Akahara Kagura suddenly raise his finger and form the sign of the serpent. Would release. Advent of a world of flowering trees. Thick vines and roots burst forth from the ground. Tall, towering trees rose from the ground along with the spreading vines and roots. Akihara Kagura controlled his chakra, raised his finger again, and manipulated the branches of the trees to converge together. Would release. With Dragon Jutsu, a huge wooden dragon emerged from the tree trunks. The wooden dragon, like a giant beast, slowly lowered its body and slid in front of Akahara Kagura, lifting the boy's body with its head and slowly raising it again. How is this possible? Would release ninjutsu. Mitarashi Anko looked on in horror at the scene in the forest of death. "I remember you now." Akihara Kagura turned his head and repeated to Mitarashi Anko, controlling the wooden dragon to spiral and wander into the depths of the forest of death. "First, let's go and greet the others. This kid..." Mitarashi Anko pondered for a moment and then swiftly rushed towards the direction of the examiner. In fact, it was not necessary for Mitarashi Anko to report back, as almost everyone present had seen the giant wooden dragon. It almost floated above the forest of death, making people think they were under attack by an unknown enemy. Hokage Tower. A group of Konoha's Hierophants watched the screen in amazement. Even though Shimura Danzo knew that Akahara Kagura had mastered the Dragon Jutsu, he never imagined that the boy could fully replicate it with his abstract teaching methods. The third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, held a pipe in his hand but did not put it into his mouth. His brain was rapidly spinning, calmly considering what this kid, who had mastered with release, meant for Konoha. Compared to Sarutobi Hiruzen, the other two Hokage advisors didn't have to think so much. Their proposals were all based on the interests of Konoha. Their eyes immediately fell on Danzo. One of the old men, wearing glasses, is named Mitokado Hamura. The other, an old woman squinting her eyes, is called Yutane Koharu. These two advisors of the Hokage were once teammates of Shimura Danzo, and they spoke more freely, asking directly the most crucial questions. "Danzo, when did this kid awaken would release?" "Danzo, whose kid is this? How did the would release Kekiai Genkai awaken on him? Does he carry the bloodline of the Senju clan?" Shimura Danzo remained silent for a while before answering. This is a kid from the Konoha orphanage. Years ago, he survived Orochimaru's illegal would-release human experimentation. Seeing the kid's strong vitality, I brought him to the root organization, and it was not until recently that he suddenly awakened would-release. "Is that so?" Mitokado Hamura's forehead wrinkled with age lines as he sighed. "It seems like a very accidental event." Yutane Koharu's tone was no longer as excited. I thought we could let the village have the first Hokages would release Kekkei Genkai again. But those human experiments, after all, are too dangerous for those involved. It's just an exception. Shimura Danzo also nodded slowly. Sarutobi Hiruzen finished his thoughts, picked up his pipe again, and slowly exhaled his first sentence. It seems that this kid's would release is very powerful, almost completely replicating the first Hokage's would release ninjutsu. One day, he might become the next first Hokage. Oh! The two advisors of the Hokage immediately became curious. Mito Kato Hamura had never paid attention to the would-release jutsu recorded in the Scroll of Seals. After all, Konoha had never been able to replicate the first Hokage's would-release. He instinctively asked, "Can this kid become as powerful a ninja as the first Hokage?" Shimura Danzo almost immediately understood the meaning of Sarutobi Hiruzen's words and hurriedly said, "This kid's would-release jutsu cannot be compared with the first Hokage, Senju Hashirama's advent of a world of flowering trees." "Danzo, you're being too narrow-minded." Sarutobi Hiruzen glanced at Shimura Danzo and seemed to seriously explain. "The technique of advent of a world of flowering trees is not yet perfect, but the wood dragon technique is different. If the effect of his wood dragon technique is the same as recorded in the Scroll of Seals, or even capable of suppressing the tailed beast, then this kid's talent for wood release is much stronger than you think. It's a waste to have him do those dark deeds in the root." "Wait!" Shimura Danzo's eyes involuntarily widened. "That's right, Danzo," Koharu Yutane, frowning, suggested. "Danzo, it's a waste to keep this kid in root. He should be entrusted to Hiruzen." Danzo gripped his cane tightly. Why does this sound so familiar? The words he always used to say to Sarutobi Hiruzen. Why is it his turn to hear them today? Chapter 29. "Danzo, you don't mind, do you?" "Hiruzen, you promise me?" The look in Shimura Danzo's eyes was dark and brooding as he stared intently at Sarutobi Hiruzen, who sat leisurely in the Hokage's office chair. His old friend was trying to take someone away from him again. This hypocritical old bastard had previously promised not to move Akahara Kagura away from the root division. But now, what was this attitude? Sarutobi Hiruzen didn't even need to actively ask. It seemed as if that wasn't his intention at all. Yet implicitly, he was stating the importance of Akahara Kagura's would-release abilities, and naturally, the two Hokage advisors would support him. After all, Sarutobi Hiruzen was the Hokage, and he was just a helper who did the dirty work for the Hokage. Everything is for the sake of Konoha. Mito Kato Hamura glanced at Shimura Danzo. Understanding his old friend, he spoke to persuade, for the future benefit of the village, we must temporarily sacrifice the combat power of the root training class. "What did Hiruzen promise you?" "I promised Danzo not to move that kid away from the root division." Sarutobi Hiruzen loosened his grip on his pipe, sighing deeply. Although this may hinder the kid's growth and affect the overall situation in the village, especially during times of internal and external troubles in Konoha, I also can't break my promise. "Hiruzen," Mito Kato Hamura immediately interrupted Sarutobi Hiruzen, speaking sternly. "Have you forgotten the promise you made to the village when you became Hokage? What could be more important than the promise to protect Konoha? The kids would release can protect Konoha. Hypocrisy! Such hypocrisy!" Shimura Danzo stared intently at Sarutobi Hiruzen. This monkey, the old bastard, had no intention of keeping his promise. Mito Kato Hamura was deceived, as was the other advisor. Both Hokage advisors were fooled by this hypocritical old monkey. However, the current situation was 3 against 1. Danzo had no way to raise any objections. "Danzo," Sarutobi Hiruzen, noticing the uncomfortable look on Shimura Danzo's face, spoke gently. "It seems I have no choice but to break my promise." At this point, Sarutobi Hiruzen even democratically asked one more question. "I'm transferring that kid here. You shouldn't mind, right?" Shimura Danzo's face darkened. "You damn fool. Use your brain and think. You should know I would definitely mind." But can I even do anything about this kind of situation? However, thinking of Akahara Kagura's would release talent, Shimura Danzo couldn't help but add, that kid has already been trained into a killing machine. Perhaps it's best to let him stay in the root training camp. Shimura Danzo glanced back at the screen showing the Forest of Death exam site and said coldly, "The darkness in that kid's heart is too deep, and his actions are too extreme. If it weren't for my orders not to kill indiscriminately, that kid would turn this Chunin exam into a bloodbath." Oh! The two Hokage advisors looked at Shimura Danzo with some curiosity. Mitokado Hamura seemed to see something unbelievable, as if looking at a liar. "Danzo, you're stopping that kid from killing. You're stopping that kid from killing? How can you say such a thing? Is there anyone in this world more extreme than you in their actions? Everyone here is an old friend who doesn't know the way you train kids. Gathering a group of kids together to train, forcing them to kill each other, training them from a young age to be tools of murder, and Danzo, who likes to do this, is stopping a kid from killing? All right, since Danzo says so." Saratobi Hiruzen picked up his pipe again, nodded, and said, "It seems we can only arrange for this kid to enter the Umbu now, right?" Shimura Danzo clenched his teeth. Does this old fool even listen to what I say? He insists on transferring to your own Umbu? Can't you just let that kid continue to stay in the root division? The main point I'm making is that this kid only obeys his own commands. It's not about which department the kid should be placed in. Monkey, this equivocator and old rascal, has already assumed the conclusion that Akahara Kagura must be transferred away, right? After the Chunin exam ends, have him report to the Umbu. Saratobi Hiruzen pretended not to understand Shimura Danzo's intention, took the opportunity to finalize the decision, and straightforwardly issued the order. Wait! Shimura Danzo quickly spoke up, wanting to raise another objection. Saratobi Hiruzen looked at Shimura Danzo and continued, "As compensation for the loss of combat power in the root division, you can freely choose 2 capable people from the village." Shimura Danzo was speechless. Who could be compared with the kid Akahara Kagura? Moreover, as the Hokage's advisor, if he wanted to pull manpower from those small ninja clans into the root division, would those clans dare to refuse? Shimura Danzo gripped his cane tightly. If this old rascal wasn't the Hokage, Danzo would have loved to lift his cane and smash it hard on Hiruzen's unwanted old face. If nobody opposes it, let's decide it this way. Saratobi Hiruzen leisurely picked up his pipe again and continued to watch the screen. Let's continue to see if there are other outstanding kidrin in this Chunin exam. Saratobi Hiruzen felt Shimura Danzo staring at him. However, when Saratobi Hiruzen turned to look, he found Shimura Danzo was also staring at the screen displaying the Chunin exam. It seems Shimura Danzo is still resentful for him breaking a promise, sneaking glances at him from time to time. Saratobi Hiruzen just chuckled at this. This old friend, still so timid, not daring to confront him directly. In the Forest of Death exam site, a massive wooden dragon slowly roamed in the sky. Akahara Kagura stood on top of the wooden dragon, using the ninja in the shadows to spy on the situation inside the Hokage building. The boy had already known in advance that he would be transferred to the Umbu. After all, this is also Akahara Kagura's intention, because there is so little free time at the base, always under the surveillance of Shimura Danzo and the members of the root. At least he can have some breathing space in the Umbu. The most important thing is, the Umbu is an organization with a more complete structure compared to the root. The only superior in the root is Shimura Danzo, but in the Umbu, there are superiors like squad leaders, battalion leaders, and a chief leader, offering more benefits. Moreover, who says that while serving in the Umbu and being loyal to the Hokage, one can't continue to be loyal to Lord Danzo. And I can continue to serve Lord Orochimaru. Look up there. What is that? With the movement of the wooden dragon. Shouts echo from time to time in the Forest of Death, and every genin candidate who looks up at the wooden dragon has a trace of fear on their face. How come this Chunin exam is so thrilling? Why would such a thing pop up at the very start? Hello there. A young voice came from the wooden dragon. Akihara Kagura, controlling the wooden dragon, slowly descended. The dragon's head hovered in front of a small team, its huge head larger than 3 people put together. Akihara Kagura looked at the 3 and slowly said, "Can you hand over what I need?" Lord Danzo said not to kill randomly, and I guess you wouldn't want me to disobey Lord Danzo's order, right? What do you need? One of the leading tall ninjas, clearly aware of the situation, took the initiative to say, "Our scroll might be the same as yours." "It doesn't matter." The young man tilted his head and said softly, "In this forest of death, scrolls are the real currency, more useful than money. Who would complain about having too much money?" Chapter 30. The Boy and the Dragon. "Throw your scroll to me." Akihara Kagura extended his hand in a very friendly manner. Just the enormous size of the wooden dragon jutsu, and the shock of seeing the wooden dragon for the first time would probably be enough to deter the small team from any thoughts of resistance. Whoosh! The scroll traced an arc through the air. Akihara Kagura caught the scroll, maneuvered the wooden dragon to turn around and leave, only leaving a sentence in the wind. "Thank you for your cooperation. I hope we can cooperate again in the future." 3 genin looked at each other in dismay. Let's hope there isn't another opportunity like this. Tisk, lucky. Akihara Kagura glanced at the scroll in his hand. He had completed the Heaven and Earth scrolls with the first team he encountered. Although the young man had always believed that passing the second round would not be very difficult, he did not expect to collect the scrolls so smoothly, which inevitably made him feel a bit happier. The remaining time of this exam, it's probably just a leisurely time to enjoy the outdoors. Akihara Kagura had no particular attachment to leaving quickly. He knew that Shimura Danzo was in a bad mood, and after leaving, he would still have to face Danzo's deadpan expression. It was better to stay here a bit longer. When the boss is in a bad mood, you should definitely not approach him actively, especially when you're the reason for his bad mood. It's better to give the boss some time to cool off. I wonder when I will encounter the next team. Akihara Kagura, riding the wooden dragon, moved through the forest of death, planning to find his chef team for the next few days and also trying to track down Uchiha Itachi. It's a pity, though. The forest of death is ultimately too vast. The entire forest of death has a radius of at least 10 kilometers. In this forest of over 300 square kilometers, scattered are more than a dozen teams. Even their entrances are unknown, and the dense forest also serves as their cover and protection. This is a game of escape, hiding, and plunder. Only Akihara Kagura, relying on his wooden dragon, can arrogantly move through the forest of death and even use this advantage to search for nearby enemies. However, the disadvantages of the wooden dragon were also quite obvious. Human beings naturally have the instinct to seek benefits and avoid harm. All enemies who could see the wooden dragon after their initial shock would quietly hide. Akihara Kagura had a massive amount of chakra, which also enhanced his perception of chakra, but it still couldn't compare to the strongest sensory Kekkei Genkai in the ninja world, the Byakugan. The ninja teams participating in the exam all chose to hide. With the situation in the forest of death unclear and a massive wooden dragon roaming the skies above, the best choice was undoubtedly to hide and avoid unknown dangers. Even Uchiha Itachi had to choose to lurk. The entire forest of death gradually became silent. Akihara Kagura patrolled back and forth twice, and it seemed that his luck had run out after encountering the first team, as he didn't come across a second team of competitors. Is there no one willing to come out? Akihara Kagura frowned and controlled the wooden dragon to head towards the central tower. If no one wants to come out, then never come out again. On the outskirts of the forest of death, a group of examiners stayed on the outskirts of the forest of death, discussing the unexpected developments in the exam. Their duty was to ensure the smooth progress of the second stage of the exam. Obviously, there was an unexpected development in the forest of death. Akihara Kagura was the biggest unexpected factor. Since Mitarashi Anko had brought back the news that Akihara Kagura was a would-release ninja, and with orders from the Hokage's office, the examiners made him their focus. Has he finally stopped wandering? What does that kid want to do? What we should be more concerned about is how long can this jutsu last? At the moment, we don't know. We haven't seen the first Hokages would release jutsu, so we don't know how long a would release can last. The Hokage told us not to worry. If that kid wants to use this method to search for enemies, someone should tell him that it won't work. The enemies will just keep hiding. Having strong power without enough brains is useless. His actions will only make other teams too scared to move. It's getting dark. Everyone needs to prepare supplies. This wilderness survival might turn into a wilderness escape. Did that kid manage to collect all the scrolls? Are the 2 scrolls in his hand heaven and earth? If he gathers them early, he should come out sooner. The surveillance can't make it out clearly. A group of examiners looked at the giant wooden dragon moving in the monitor, feeling a terrible headache. They had never seen such a troublesome candidate in the Chunin exams before. Once the candidate Akihara Kagura relies on his ninjutsu to cause some trouble, it wouldn't be good if he completely disrupts the Chunin exams. However, unexpectedly, accidents still happen. An examiner suddenly looked at the monitor screen in front of him in horror. Something big has happened. That wooden dragon has entwined the tower. Don't panic. As the chief examiner, Yamashiro Oba, holding his sunglasses, tried to appear calm. It's okay. That kid must want to blockade the final tower, to lie in wait for other teams there. Yamashiro Oba felt he had grasped Akihara Kagura's intentions and slowly continued. This strategy is not new. Few succeed each year. Even if his ninjutsu is strong, it's not certain he can catch the cunning. But Mitarashi Anko, with a dumpling in her mouth, muttered, I remember that broken tower in the Forest of Death hasn't been repaired for many years. The tower has collapsed. An examiner responsible for monitoring the tower area suddenly burst out, his face full of panic. That wooden dragon entangled the tower and directly destroyed it. The checkpoint for the second stage of the exam has been destroyed by that kid. What the hell? Why block everyone's path? This is going to add so much trouble to our work. All the examiners on site instantly boiled with excitement. This was adding a difficulty to the normal workflow that the staff could not solve, nor had they even considered. The only chief examiner, Yamashiro Aoba, had cold sweat on his forehead. His nature was somewhat timid, and at this moment, he seemed to be trying to maintain his calm. Don't panic. Don't panic. Don't panic. Think about what to do in this situation. What are you waiting for? Mitarashi Anko, biting a dumpling, voiced her opinion. The tower is just a signal marker for arrival. Inside the tower is just the correct method to open the Heaven and Earth Scroll. As long as the candidates arrive with the Heaven and Earth Scrolls, now quickly dispatch someone to stand guard there to avoid panic. When a candidate arrives in that area with the Heaven and Earth Scrolls, just tell them the correct way to open it, and there won't be any problems. Enko, Yamashiro Aoba, as if greatly relieved, quickly rushed to Mitarashi Anko. This matter, I'll leave it to you. Go there immediately with your team. In the center of the Forest of Death, the tower had already become a ruin. Akihara Kagura sat in front of these ruins, a huge wooden dragon spiraling over the ruins behind the boy. Under the afterglow of the setting sun, it cast the scene of a boy and a fierce dragon. Chapter 31, Anko Senpai. The noise of the collapse of the tower shook the Forest of Death. A group of hidden genin examinees finally couldn't contain themselves any longer. Looking at the distant disappearing tower, they started to worry about their scores and hurried towards the center of the forest. Akihara Kagura sat on the steps in front of the ruins, watching the birds in the forest startled by the crowd, slowly revealing a smile on his face. The fish will always bite the hook. Akihara Kagura made a huge wooden dragon disappear beside him, whispering almost in a low voice. It's starting, wooden dragon. Obviously, the first to arrive would definitely be those who travel light. As someone participating in the Chunin exams alone, Uchiha Itachi didn't need to worry about the speed of his teammates. He immediately hid himself upon reaching the vicinity of the central area. This genius young man from the Uchiha clan hid among a pile of fallen leaves, secretly observing Akahara Kagura and the wooden dragon behind him in the ruins. It's actually him. The surprise wasn't exclusive to Uchiha Itachi. Another team that hurried over also quickly saw the figure of Akahara Kagura. Originally, they also wanted to continue hiding, but as team after team converged in this area, some inevitable encounters and conflicts arose. Why are you hiding here? Damn it! Trying to ambush us? Let's take out these few despicable people first. Don't throw the shuriken recklessly. The scene quickly descended into chaos. The area wasn't very large to begin with, and soon a series of small-scale battles erupted, with the chaos of the fights also affecting other hidden individuals. This is an opportunity. Due to the collapse of the tower, all teams were forced to converge in this area ahead of schedule, and some powerful teams were seizing the chance to snatch the Heaven and Earth Scrolls. Even Uchiha Itachi's hiding spot, which was very concealed, was finally noticed by the battling ninjas, forcing him to join the fray. The situation doesn't allow us to just start fighting like this. Uchiha Itachi, hand over your scroll, and you will be spared. This squad was no match for Uchiha Itachi at all. They were quickly defeated by Uchiha Itachi, and their scroll fell into his hands. Very lucky and very smooth, Uchiha Itachi had collected both Heaven and Earth Scrolls, and swiftly withdrew to the side. He didn't want to get involved in pointless disputes, and his gaze returned to Akahara Kagura. But neither lucky nor smooth, apart from the young Uchiha Itachi, many others also realized the threat of Akahara Kagura, running around calling for everyone present to gather together. Everyone stop. Get lost. We'll deal with you first. Don't fight anymore. Deal with that kid first. Don't forget about the wooden dragon behind that kid. We can't handle it with just one squad. Don't let him win. Unfortunately, once the battle started, even if the participants still had their sanity, it wasn't easy to stop anymore. Just as a long-haired ninja was desperately urging everyone to stop the infighting, a young voice appeared in the midst. Hey, it's not easy to stop a battle. People could die. How about I help you? Who? The long-haired ninja turned around with some joy. However, his expression soon froze as he saw the last person he wanted to see. Akahara Kagura slowly walked down from the rubble steps. Would release. Advent of a world of flowering trees. The ground in the entire area trembled once again. Vines and tree roots shot out rapidly from under Akahara Kagura's feet, and in the blink of an eye, a forest of tall trees had grown. What is this? Run! Quick, help me cut it down! The branches and roots of these giant trees continued to stretch rapidly, binding every genin examinee they touched to the trees. Swords are too inefficient. Uchiha Itachi swung his sword, cutting off a tree branch as thick as an arm. He quickly sheathed his blade, retreated rapidly, and swiftly formed hand seals with both hands. Fire release, great fireball technique. A giant fireball hit the vines attacking him, immediately spreading flames that burned back the vines and even ignited a giant tree. However, this efficiency was still too slow. The power of the great fireball technique was not enough to burn down all the giant trees, nor to stop the spread of the wood release. Advent of a world of flowering trees technique. No good. I've already collected the scrolls. Let's keep our distance and watch. Uchiha Itachi looked at his 2 scrolls and decided to retreat first. His figure quickly vanished from there. The other examinees didn't have his strength nor his luck. Akahara Kagura's would release. Advent of a world of flowering trees was far beyond their ninjutsu capabilities. Other teams of ninjas were exhausted under the relentless attacks of the vines and tree roots. A group of genin was hanging from the same tree. They dangled from the tree like hanging fruits. Akahara Kagura stood on the head of a wooden dragon, rising to their level and asked, "You're lucky. Even though killing is allowed in the second round of the Chunin exam, Lord Danzo doesn't allow me to kill. So I won't kill you. What do you want to do?" A ninja asked the question everyone wanted to ask. Akihara Kagura toyed with a scroll in his hand and said, "First, hand over what I need, and second, what are you doing?" A somewhat familiar female voice came through. When Mitarashi Anko arrived with a group of Chunin examiners, she saw such a bizarre scene and couldn't help but stop in her tracks. Akihara Kagura saw a group of arriving examiners. A group of genin who were suspended looked at the examiners, their eyes inevitably showing hope, expecting these examiners to intervene in the exam and rescue them. However, the person who arrived always claimed to be the most ruthless kunoichi in Konoha. Ignoring the longing genin, Mitarashi Anko pointed to the ruined tower and asked loudly, destroying the endpoint of the second round of the exam, "Do you want to make it impossible for everyone to pass?" The village shouldn't let that happen. Akihara Kagura looked down at the group of Chunin examiners and explained, "I just wanted to draw them out. I'm not very good at survival in the wild, so I had to use this method to force them out to steal some food from these guys. What a pity! I caught a fish, and it seems like the owner of the pond has come to me. What kind of weird metaphor is that?" Mitarashi Anko, with a dumpling in her mouth, frowned and said, "Aren't you worried about being eliminated?" "Not worried. Someone told me the password for the second round in advance." Akihara Kagura spread his palms indifferently and continued, "Strictly speaking, the requirement to pass the second round of the Chunin exam is just to collect the heaven and earth scrolls and get here. I guess there are others here who know this too." Mitarashi Anko bit her dumpling angrily. Akihara Kagura licked his lips. "Hey, kid, are you hungry?" Continuing to chew on her dumpling, and seemingly having thought of something, Mitarashi Anko suddenly grinned and said, "If you have collected the heaven and earth scrolls and want to pass at this time, you can accept food from people outside the arena." When Mitarashi Anko reached this point, she even took out a food bag and continued leisurely, "If you stay here and eat what these people make, what if they poison it? There have been quite a few precedents for this during the Chunin exams." Mitarashi Anko's thought process was very clear. As long as she could get this kid out of the exam area, she could avoid any trouble that might arise in the future. To be honest, this kid always causes trouble. Akihara Kagura laughed, raised his hand, and the scrolls of heaven and earth flew in his hand, flinging towards Mitarashi Anko. "Tiefe, you made the right choice." Mitarashi Anko caught the two scrolls and chuckled. "Normally, I should teach you how to open the heaven and earth scrolls, but I think it's a waste of time for you. Congratulations on being the first candidate to clear the exam. I choose to clear the exam too." Uchiha Itachi suddenly appeared here at some point. When Uchiha Itachi saw the Chunin examiners, he immediately realized that as long as he saw an examiner, he might be able to clear the exam directly from them, because the tower, which was the end point for clearing the exam, had been destroyed. "Congratulations on being the second." Mitarashi Anko quickly glanced at Uchiha Itachi and added, "The little kid from the Uchiha clan. It's still not too late to go to the village's sweet shop and buy some tricolored dumplings." Since both of them were regular customers at the Konoha sweet shop, Mitarashi Anko knew that Uchiha Itachi liked tricolored dumplings. "Ah, thank you, senpai." Uchiha Itachi nodded awkwardly and quickly dashed towards the exit. Akihara Kagura paid no attention to all this. His eyes were on the food bag in Mitarashi Anko's hand, seemingly waiting for Mitarashi Anko to give him the bag. Mitarashi Anko took a skewer of dumplings out of the bag, continued to bite into one, and showed a fierce expression. "Kid, you've caused us examiners so much trouble. Do you think I would share my favorite sweets with you?" "Tisk, I've been fooled again." Akihara Kagura couldn't help but laugh. Still looking at the fierce Mitarashi Anko, "Anko-senpai, I'm almost worried I'll forget about you." Chapter 32. First Contact with Naruto. "I finally sent that little kid away." Mitarashi Anko bit into a dumpling, feeling somewhat relieved. Why do I feel it's not so good to deceive that little guy? A Chunin examiner cautiously asked, seemingly also afraid of Mitarashi Anko's temper, and added, "Of course, that little kid caused a lot of trouble during the exam. And Anko, you really helped everyone out by taking a strong stand. Because of that little kid, Akahara Kagura, the entire Chunin exam was somewhat chaotic. In the first written exam, Akahara Kagura used transformation techniques to play all the examinees, almost causing the entire Chunin exam to collapse. In the second outdoor survival round, Akahara Kagura destroyed the final checkpoint and almost captured all the teams with his own strength. It was like he was trying to eliminate all the competitors in the second round, almost making it impossible to carry on with the third round. Forget it. Mitarashi Anko waved his hand, watching Akahara Kagura's departing figure, and said indifferently, "Such lively kid just needs some education. What about the rest of the examinees? Didn't that little kid release the jutsu?" Mitarashi Anko looked at the group of examinees in the forest of death, lying in disarray. Originally, all these guys should have been eliminated, but this time let them fight it out themselves. They're all gathered here, so the results should come out soon. It's getting dark. The night in the village of Konoha gradually quieted down. The shops on the street began to close, leaving only a few shops and the warm orange light of Ichiraka ramen shining in the night. Gurgle, gurgle. A blonde-haired little boy hid under the eaves, rubbing his hungry stomach, looking at Ichiraka ramen not far away, and counted the few coins left in his hand. This money isn't enough for a bowl of noodles. A young man's voice appeared beside the little boy. Yeah, the blonde-haired little boy subconsciously nodded, then realized someone was beside him and took 2 steps back in shock. "You? Who are you?" "Just another person with a growling stomach." The boy stretched out his hand to touch his flattened, hungry stomach, then fumbled in his empty pockets. Another person in dire poverty. The corner of the blond little boy's eyes twitched. "Come here." The boy squatted on the steps under the eaves, waving to the little boy. "If you squat and rest a bit, you won't feel too hungry." The blond little boy slowly shuffled over. Many people in the village would scold him, never allowing him close, but this older brother didn't shun him. This blond little boy was Uzumaki Naruto, the 9-tailed Jinchuriki of Konoha, within whom the most ferocious-tailed beast of the ninja world was sealed. And the other boy was indeed Akahara Kagura. After leaving the forest of death, he didn't want to return to the roots so soon. Taking advantage of the time, he decided to enjoy the scenery of Konoha. Unexpectedly, he met Uzumaki Naruto on the street. This is a child who is impossible to dislike. The story of this little boy always inspires many people to bravely move forward. Even Akahara Kagura had to admit, if it weren't for the story of this little boy in his previous life, nobody would have liked this ninja world. He is the warmest sun in this ninja world. Uzumaki Naruto doesn't know all this. This little guy was somewhat happy, seemingly having met someone who didn't dislike him, and curiously started a conversation. "Are you a ninja from the village?" "Yes." Akahara Kagura nodded, glanced at the little blonde beside him, and added, "In a few days, I will be a chunin of the village." "Do you know what a chunin is?" "It's a level you, little kid, will never reach in your lifetime." Uzumaki Naruto's forehead twitched. He pouted in dissatisfaction and vigorously waved his little fists. "That's impossible. I will surpass the Hokage. Do you know what kind of person the Hokage is? The strongest person in the village is a Hokage. You need to eat well first, though." Akahara Kagura's words instantly defeated the passionate fighting spirit of the little blond boy. He continued slowly, "Children must eat well in order to grow up strong and healthy. You're hungry too, aren't you?" Uzumaki Naruto rubbed his growling stomach and immediately retorted, "I could have had enough food for a few days." Akahara Kagura changed her position, sitting on the steps with his hands on his legs, his eyes somewhat dim. "Unfortunately, I was deceived today. Although I found it bothersome and was willing to be deceived, the fact that she deceived me still makes me angry. So annoying." Uzumaki Naruto dug in his ears. I see. Akahara Kagura smiled, patted Uzumaki Naruto on the head, and showed a smile. It's okay. One day you will feel this way too. No way. Uzumaki Naruto loudly contradicted, indicating that his intelligence would not be so low. I won't be easily fooled like you. Is that so? Akahara Kagura seemed somewhat skeptical. Just as Akahara Kagura and little Naruto were chatting, an old man with a pipe in his mouth passed by on the street and suddenly stopped in front of them. Grandpa! Uzumaki Naruto's face immediately became excited. He recognized the old man, who would occasionally appear by his side when he was feeling down or sad. Yo, Naruto! The old man puffed on his pipe, blowing a ring of smoke, and slowly said, It's so late. Aren't you going home to sleep? The old man didn't wait for Uzumaki Naruto to answer. His gaze fell on Akahara Kagura. There's another little one here. Why aren't you resting at night either? Because I'm so hungry. Uzumaki Naruto tapped his stomach, suddenly looked up at the old man and said, Grandpa, take me fishing. He can't sleep because he's hungry too. Let's go fishing by the river together. If we catch fish, we'll have something to eat. All right. The old man, with a kind face, extended his hand to pat Uzumaki Naruto's head, but his gaze still lingered on Akahara Kagura. Little one, since you haven't eaten, come with us. I want to eat ramen. Akahara Kagura slowly replied. This little one really is impolite. The old man's eyes flickered, quickly adjusting to Akahara Kagura's attitude, and said with a smile, This old man didn't bring much money when he left home. Do you two little ones have any money with you? I only have these. Uzumaki Naruto showed the old man the coins in his hand. My pockets are cleaner than my face. Akahara Kagura shook his head and stood up. Never mind, I've played enough for today. If I go back too late, Lord Danzo will be angry. What an obedient child. The old man praised with a smile and said, I happen to have a friend named Danzo, and I remember he's not the type to get angry easily. Chapter 33, I Want Ramen. Why is there always someone thinking of deceiving oneself? Who dares say that Danzo is not easily angered? Can anyone in Konoha be found who loves to lose their temper more than Shimura Danzo? Akahara Kagura quietly watched the old man's smiling face. This old guy is clearly the chief culprit who made Shimura Danzo so angry that he wanted to kill someone. Let's go fishing first. The old man leisurely blew a smoke ring, his smile appearing very kind. If the little guy doesn't eat well at night, it can affect his growth. The old man saw that Akahara Kagura seemed unmoved and continued. If you go back too late and Danzo gets angry, I'll help you persuade him. Oh! Akahara Kagura raised an eyebrow, showing a provoking expression. Lord Danzo is the Hokage's advisor in the village. Do you think your words matter? I and Danzo have been old friends for many years. The old man nodded, his eyes clearly showing confidence. He was very confident that he could suppress Danzo. When I speak, he listens. The old man just likes to brag. A hint of dissatisfaction appeared on Akahara Kagura's face. Grandpa is the Hokage of the village. Uzumaki Naruto quickly responded, but then clenched his little fist, adding, But this is only temporary. When I grow up, I will definitely replace him as Hokage, and I will surpass him. As Uzumaki Naruto said, the old man was indeed the third Hokage of Konoha, Sarutobi Hiruzen, but this time he was not wearing the Hokage's hat. Sarutobi Hiruzen originally intended to observe the village's situation after watching the commotion in the Forest of Death from his office, and then he saw Akahara Kagura and Uzumaki Naruto together. Sarutobi Hiruzen immediately wanted to take the opportunity to meet these two youngsters and pass on the will of fire to the future of the village, something he always liked to do, because Sarutobi Hiruzen was not very formal. Including Uzumaki Naruto, the children didn't have much fear of the third Hokage, only respect. Of course, some children in the village didn't know that the old man who always wandered around the village was the Hokage. When they suddenly found out from others, they would exclaim in surprise, showing a very astonished look, and their attitude would become respectful. Sarutobi Hiruzen was always happy to kindly pat the heads of children at times like these, showing that the village's Hokage was a gentle and kind old man. These kinds of children often grew more affectionate towards the elderly. These kinds of children were also more easily sown with the seeds of the will of fire. However, today was a bit unusual. Upon realizing that the old man before him was the third Hokage, Akahara Kagura showed a look of shock, followed by a hint of wary hostility. Sarutobi Hiruzen still had that kind, smiling face, seemingly indifferent to Akahara Kagura's hostility. He knew that the children under Danzo's care were not quite normal. "You are the third Hokage." Akahara Kagura watched Sarutobi Hiruzen warily, shaking his head with furrowed brows. "You don't look like a Hokage at all. A real Hokage should be like Lord Danzo." As Akahara Kagura spoke, he seemed to recall the declaration of Uzumaki Naruto, who was beside him, about wanting to become Hokage. Kids shouldn't dream. Akahara Kagura pressed down on Uzumaki Naruto's head, messing up his hair. "You have no chance. The Hokage of Konoha will definitely be Lord Danzo. Get your hands off me." Uzumaki Naruto grabbed Akahara Kagura's wrist, retorting loudly, "Impossible. I will become Hokage. That Danzo guy has no chance at all." "Why is it impossible?" Akahara Kagura patted Uzumaki Naruto's head. "Konoha can be without anyone, but it can't be without Lord Danzo. Lord Danzo will definitely become the Hokage." Observing all this, Sarutobi Hiruzen's eyes revealed a hint of sharpness. However, this sharpness disappeared in an instant, and the old man quickly returned to his kind demeanor as if it had never appeared. "Oh, Danzo wants to become Hokage, huh?" Sarutobi Hiruzen chuckled lightly and continued slowly. "I grew up with him since childhood, and I've never heard him express the desire to become the Hokage. How can you say such a thing? How can you say such a heartless thing? Do you, old man, have no idea about Danzo's thoughts at all?" "Yes, Danzo never told me. But as Lord Danzo's top confidant, I definitely know Lord Danzo's thoughts." Akahara Kagura suppressed the urge to continue arguing with Uzumaki Naruto and asked Sarutobi Hiruzen seriously, "Does Lord Danzo truly not wish to become the Hokage?" Sarutobi Hiruzen was at a loss for words for a moment. This question, if lied about, could easily be exposed, leaving the impression on the young man in front of him that he is a liar. How could he then pass on the will of fire to him in the future? Maybe he thought about it. Sarutobi Hiruzen decided to use a baseless tactic. "I knew it was so." Akahara Kagura patted Uzumaki Naruto, signaling the little guy to calm down, and continued to Sarutobi Hiruzen. "So, Lord Danzo had indeed thought about becoming the Hokage, right?" Sarutobi Hiruzen silently nodded. "Didn't the third Hokage just say that he and Lord Danzo were friends?" Akahara Kagura seemed to have grasped the truth and started to make up stories carelessly. Perhaps initially, both the third Hokage and Lord Danzo had the opportunity to compete for the position of Hokage. Lord Danzo might have had a great chance to become the Hokage, but he didn't want to compete with a friend and risk losing their friendship. So he had to give up the position of Hokage to the third Hokage. Sarutobi Hiruzen's expression turned somewhat unpleasant. The original position of Hokage was personally designated by his teacher, the second Hokage Senju Tobirama. It can even be said that it was a command in a crisis. Danzo never had the opportunity to become Hokage. "You little kid, you are too biased against Shimura Danzo." Sarutobi Hiruzen vaguely felt that the topic of his conversation with Akahara Kagura was deviating. Wasn't he here to pass on the will of fire to the future of the village? Why discuss his competition with Shimura Danzo for the position of Hokage? "Little kid." Sarutobi Hiruzen took a long drag on his cigarette, blew out a big smoke ring, and decided to steer the conversation back on track. "Hokage is not a position people fight over, but a responsibility to bear. The Hokage carries the hopes and recognition of everyone in the village. Hokage! Akihara Kagura lowered his head in deep thought, seemingly persuaded by Sarutobi Hiruzen's words. Does it mean bearing the hopes and recognition of everyone in the village? Yes. Sarutobi Hiruzen's voice sounded weary. Seeing both Akihara Kagura and Uzumaki Naruto in front of him deep in thought, Sarutobi Hiruzen finally nodded in satisfaction, ready to give these two youngsters a good lesson. Third Hokage. Akihara Kagura's expression suddenly became serious. My hope is to have a bowl of hot Ichiraku ramen when I am hungry. Me too. Me too. Uzumaki Naruto also quickly raised his hand, looking at Akihara Kagura and saying, when I become Hokage in the future, I will definitely treat you to ramen every day. All right, I'll treat you. Sarutobi Hiruzen gripped his pipe tightly. After all, he had just said that the Hokage must bear the expectations and recognition of everyone. If he didn't satisfy these two now, it seemed impossible to make them willing to continue listening to the lesson about the Will of Fire. Chapter 34. 8 of the last paragraph is the title. 2 bowls of ramen. The third Hokage is treating. Akihara Kagura pointed to the old man behind him, appearing somewhat impolite. I want 2 bowls of ramen too. It's Grandpa Hokage's treat. Uzumaki Naruto, pretending to be cool, mimicked Akihara Kagura's actions, pointing at Sarutobi Hiruzen following them, even more rudely than Akihara Kagura. Uzumaki Naruto, this little guy, didn't understand what it meant to be polite. A 6-year-old child at this age likes to imitate people they meet. Even Uzumaki Naruto could even surpass his models. Uncle Tuchi, Sister Ayam. Uzumaki Naruto's face was filled with a happy smile as he joked, if you have any wishes, you can ask Grandpa Hokage. Just say your wish, and he will make it come true. Tuchi, the owner, tried to open his eyes, looking somewhat bewildered. Really? Ayam looked at the old man with some surprise. Cough, cough. Sarutobi Hiruzen quickly coughed a few times, speaking somewhat helplessly. Naruto, the existence of the Hokage is not for everyone to casually make wishes. Oh, Uzumaki Naruto's face immediately fell. However, Uzumaki Naruto's mood quickly brightened again. Well, I'm happy to eat ramen tonight. Forget it. Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed deeply and sat down beside them. Tuchi, make me a bowl of ramen too. I might have to put it on tab tonight. Oh, okay. Tuchi, the owner, nodded obediently, not minding the third Hokage's tab. During this period, the credibility of the Hokage of Konoha was actually quite good. No one would think that the Hokage of the strongest ninja village would default on a debt. Hey, I just remembered something. While waiting for the noodles to cook, Uzumaki Naruto curiously turned his head to Akihara Kagura. I don't think I've asked your name yet. Code A. Akihara Kagura revealed his code name from the Root Division and added, but this name can only be used by Lord Danzo. You can call me Kagura, Akihara Kagura. Why? Uzumaki Naruto asked directly. Because Lord Danzo gave me a new life. Akihara Kagura spoke calmly, as if stating a fact. I used to be an orphan in the village. Someone sent me to a dark place where a long-haired man would cut my body with a knife every day. I couldn't even die. It was Lord Danzo who rescued me. Oh, Danzo saved you. The frown on Sarutobi Hiruzen's face relaxed. Sarutobi Hiruzen was pondering the relationship between Akihara Kagura and Shimura Danzo, and suddenly understood a bit more upon hearing Kagura's words. Yes, Lord Danzo saved me. Akihara Kagura took a pair of chopsticks, calmly adjusting his emotions. When I thought everyone had abandoned me, when I was in despair, Lord Danzo saved me. He made me a ninja and taught me ninjutsu. Sounds like a good person. Uzumaki Naruto's impression of Shimura Danzo improved significantly. Cough, cough. Sarutobi Hiruzen felt choked by the smoke. Shimura Danzo, a good person? That seemed a bit insulting to his ears. The third Hokage thinks so too, right? A smile appeared on Akahara Kagura's face, seemingly pleased by Naruto's praise. He stroked the little guy's blonde hair. When you become a ninja, I'll have Lord Danzo assign you to the Root Division. Together, we can eliminate the others en route. Huh. Naruto's smile stiffened. Cough, cough, cough. Sarutobi Hiruzen coughed violently. The Hokage suddenly felt that moving Akahara Kagura from Root to the Umbu was actually saving his old friend Danzo, preventing Root from becoming an empty shell. This division was somewhat of a failure, but there were also great gains. Sarutobi Hiruzen felt that he was gradually understanding the real reason why Akahara Kagura was so loyal to Shimura Danzo. If he wasn't mistaken, the long-haired man who conducted human experiments on Akahara Kagura was probably Orochimaru, his own defected disciple. As for the idea that Danzo rescued people, only naive children would believe such a thing. It's possible that the person who threw Kagura into the laboratory was Danzo himself. Actually, Sarutobi Hiruzen knew a bit of the truth in his heart. Shimura Danzo had always supported Orochimaru's unauthorized human experiments. He planned to find the right opportunity to let this child know the truth. At that time, would this child still be so loyal to Shimura Danzo? Sarutobi Hiruzen slowly picked up his smoking pipe again. His only trouble was to make sure that after this child knew the truth, he wouldn't hate the mistakes of Konoha. This matter wasn't a problem for Sarutobi Hiruzen, as long as he lets Akahara Kagura build bonds with others, teaching him to slowly learn to protect the friends that are tied to his bonds. Kagura, don't always think about hurting others. The purpose of a ninja's existence is not to harm others. Holding his smoking pipe, Sarutobi Hiruzen looked seriously at Akahara Kagura, planning to restart his lesson. Kagura, the purpose of a ninja's existence is to protect those you want to. Have you ever wanted to protect someone? I have. Akahara Kagura nodded indifferently, continuing. I wanted to protect the dean, Yakushi Nono, but she abandoned me, so now I want to kill her. Sarutobi Hiruzen's expression changed slightly. He had heard of Yakushi Nono, a member of the village's intelligence department, always providing valuable information to the village. But wasn't this child a bit extreme? Now, I only want to protect Lord Danzo. Akahara Kagura rested his elbow on his chin, pondering his next words. But what Lord Danzo asked me to do is probably just to help him kill his enemies. This Danzo guy... Uzumaki Naruto sat on the table shivering. Don't speak lightly of killing. Sarutobi Hiruzen tapped his pipe, his expression becoming extremely serious. It takes over 60 years for a life to reach my age. However, a life can often be extinguished in just a few seconds. So, you see... Akahara Kagura, almost self-taught, lit up with realization. To protect someone, you need to diligently guard them for decades. But to help them kill an enemy, it only takes a few seconds, which seems simpler. Uzumaki Naruto felt something was not quite right. Cough, 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 cough. Sarutobi Hiruzen waved his hands repeatedly and said, although that's true, an excellent ninja often has to do things that ordinary people cannot. Akahara Kagura fell silent. But after a moment, Akahara Kagura suddenly spoke. Lord Danzo said that I can use with release jutsu, something others can't do, and that I'm already doing excellently. That's not what I mean. Sarutobi Hiruzen couldn't help but grit his teeth. Shimura Danzo, that bastard, clearly led this child astray. Hey, what about you? Akahara Kagura looked at Uzumaki Naruto. Are you an excellent ninja? Can you do something that others cannot? Yes. Uzumaki Naruto, with his face turned up, sniffled and proudly replied with a flushed face. Other kids can cry in their parents' arms, but I don't have parents, nobody around me, and I won't cry alone. You are also an excellent ninja. Akahara Kagura sincerely praised. Sarutobi Hiruzen's face slowly became more solemn. The old man forcefully tapped out the tobacco from his pipe, put away his pipe, and looking at the ramen served by the owner Tucci and Ayam, he finally decided to give up on this lesson. Let's eat. After eating, go back to rest. Children must go to bed early and not stay up late. Chapter 35. The Mysterious Pitcher Plant. Thank you for the meal. 10-year-old Akahara Kagura nodded in thanks. Perhaps because of the saying, one's mouth is indebted to those who fill it, or perhaps because Sarutobi Hiruzen had them quietly finish their ramen, Akahara Kagura was unusually polite. Thank you for the meal. 6-year-old Uzumaki Naruto was still very much in sync. If one ignored the hair colors of these two kids, it almost seemed like the synchronized actions of two brothers, the older leading the younger. Go home and rest early. Sarutobi Hiruzen picked up his smoking pipe again. This encounter was not without its gains. Sarutobi Hiruzen felt he had come to understand Akahara Kagura and was no longer too insistent on guiding him. He even felt that Kagura's attitude towards Naruto tonight showed that the kid's character wasn't so bad. I'm off. Bye-bye. Uzumaki Naruto happily patted his full belly, waved goodbye to Akahara Kagura and Sarutobi Hiruzen, and walked back towards his home. Can't really tell. Akahara Kagura's gaze followed the departing Uzumaki Naruto. Oh! Sarutobi Hiruzen, with his pipe, turned and asked Akahara Kagura, who stood still, Kagura, is there something you're trying to see in little Naruto? You can't tell at all that he's sad. Akahara Kagura's eyes darkened, and he spoke softly. If someone abandoned me, I'd be so sad I'd want to kill. Sarutobi Hiruzen felt somewhat uneasy. I'm leaving. Akahara Kagura said no more and walked towards the headquarters of the root organization. This child... Sarutobi Hiruzen shook his head helplessly. The old man, who had controlled the power of Konoha for decades, walked towards the Hokage Tower. His voice suddenly turned deep and cold. Kakashi, Tenzo. As the sound fell, Hatake Kakashi and Tenzo appeared beside him in an instant. This morning, they were both on leave. But while they were resting in the evening, they were suddenly ordered to serve as guards for the Hokage. How do you feel about Akahara Kagura? Sarutobi Hiruzen's gaze was fixed on the Hokage building, not looking at his two subordinates, and he continued, after the Chunin exam is over, that child will join the Umbu. I will arrange for him to be in your team. Hatake Kakashi couldn't help but glance at Sarutobi Hiruzen. The third Hokage did not turn around. His steps were firm, and he did not seem to want to discuss it with anyone. It was an order from the Hokage. Yes. Hatake Kakashi quickly bowed his head. As for Tenzo beside him, he usually had little say in such situations. Sarutobi Hiruzen suddenly stopped and seriously continued, By the way, don't underestimate that child. His would-release talent is strong, and from what we can see now, he already has considerable combat ability. Yes, Hatake Kakashi and Tenzo exchanged glances. Sarutobi Hiruzen again mentioned Akahara Kagura's shortcomings. However, that child's basic ninja education is not up to standard. He is somewhat too extreme, and we can't put him under the guidance of the leading jonin in the village. You and Tenzo will have to teach him more in the future. This... Hatake Kakashi suddenly felt a bit troubled, because the first time he met Akahara Kagura, he thought that the kid wasn't normal, often wanting to kill people for Shimura Danzo and such. However, whether it was the encounter at Ichiraku Ramen this morning, or hearing about the kid impersonating him and almost causing a major incident, Hatake Kakashi felt that the child's personality was definitely worse than he had imagined. But the Umbu must obey orders from the Hokage. Yes, Hatake Kakashi could only seriously agree and then suggested, since Akahara Kagura possesses would release Kekiai Genkai, why not put him in Tenzo's team? Tenzo looked at Hatake Kakashi in disbelief. Tenzo was an honest person who believed Hatake Kakashi to be a reliable senpai. At this moment, Tenzo suddenly heard that Hatake Kakashi was going to give him a big trouble, and his mind finally became uncontrollably active. Hey, what kind of joke are you making, Kakashi-senpai? You know very well how awkward my relationship with Akahara Kagura is. That kid yells at me every day. Why would you still put him in my class? You must know the kind of torture I will endure. Okay, Sarutobi Hiruzen agreed to Hatake Kakashi's suggestion. After giving his orders, the Hokage waved his hand at them. All right, you can leave now. I'll take a walk by myself. Yes. Two figures disappeared instantly behind Sarutobi Hiruzen in the alleyways of the street. After leaving the Hokage, Tenzo couldn't hold back anymore and anxiously said, "This, Senpai, putting me and that kid Kagura together. I believe you can do it well." Hatake Kakashi patted Tenzo on the shoulder and continued, "Tenzo, I've always believed that you can become a reliable senpai too. But, Tenzo..." Hatake Kakashi interrupted him and said in a low voice, "That child possesses the same would-release Kekkei Genkai as you. Maybe this is also a fateful encounter. I hope you can make him someone who, like you, silently protects Konoha from the shadows." All right. Tenzo could only scratch his head helplessly and propose his plan. "I'll first teach him to slowly develop the would-release ninjutsu. If there are any problems, I'll come to ask Senpai." Okay, Hatake Kakashi agreed, putting his hand into his pocket. "Since today's guard mission is over, go back and rest early." Yeah. Tenzo scratched his head in distress and walked towards his home. Hatake Kakashi, with his head hung low, leaned against the wall. This famously cold-blooded ninja, Kakashi, gradually began to zone out. Most of the time, he didn't even know what he was thinking about. It seemed as if Hatake Kakashi's fate was destined to be lonely. As a child, his father suddenly committed suicide, making him an orphan in school. As he grew up, his closest teammates died one after another in the war. Later, his teacher and his teacher's wife both died during the Nine Tails rampage, making Kakashi feel oppressed by fate, unable to catch his breath. Kakashi felt his future life was going to be muddled, forever staying in the Umbu carrying out endless missions, never able to have a moment of happiness again. After a long time, Kakashi got up and left the alley. Only after Kakashi had left did a mysterious man in a black robe with a mask quietly appear, coldly snorting as he watched Kakashi's departing figure. "Humph, this waste." Hee hee. A plant monster resembling a pitcher plant with a black and white body slowly emerged from the ground. The half of its face that was white was smiling as it spoke to the masked man. "There's no need to pay attention to Hatake Kakashi anymore, right? Shouldn't we be more concerned about that would-release kid who has reappeared in Konoha? Maybe that kid could become an ally in the Eye of the Moon plan." Chapter 36. What had that bastard told you? Would-release Kekkei Genkai may not be of much use against the Eye of the Moon plan. The mysterious masked man seemed not to like the power of would-release and spoke coldly. "I've also awakened the would-release Kekkei Genkai, and I do not think it is stronger than the Mangekyo Sharingan. That must be because your would-release is too weak." The pitcher plant monster knew this well, but did not plan to argue with the mysterious masked man. They knew that his Mangekyo Sharingan was indeed more powerful than his would-release. All right, there seemed to be two wills existing within the pitcher plant monster. The black half of the face on the head of the pitcher plant monster slightly moved its mouth and spoke in a somewhat hoarse and gloomy voice. "It just so happens we are in Konoha. Let's observe that would-release kid's talent. The Eye of the Moon plan needs a number of strong helpers. One more person is always useful. Besides, I just went to the Forest of Death in Konoha to observe. Although I didn't see that kids use would-release, the forest still retained a strong life energy, proving that the kid's would-release is not useless. That's good. If that kid really is useful, a kid full of darkness and flaws, for me, is too easy to deal with." The mysterious masked man did not look at the pitcher plant monster beside him, and carelessly raised his hand. Clenching it into a fist, "I have a piece in my hand that can deal with him. Just a little trick, and he will be abandoned and have nowhere to go." Oh! The pitcher plant monster became somewhat curious. Some time ago, Someone sneaked into the Mist Village, and I noticed it was Aburame Tatsuma, a subordinate of Shimura Danzo. I caught him with my own hands. The mysterious masked man spoke of his plan with an unavoidably proud tone. As long as I would release ninjutsu to kill Aburame Tatsuma, and then throw the body for the people of Konoha to find, I can frame it on that kid, Akahara Kagura. Theoretically speaking, this plan is somewhat simple. If it really is implemented, there is a high chance of achieving the goal, because not many people in the ninja world have the would release Kekkei Genkai. The remaining time is just to continue observing that kid. The mysterious masked man eventually nodded and snorted coldly. I also happened to observe how the seed I left 2 years ago has grown. Uchiha Itachi, the white half-face on the head of the pitcher plant monster, suddenly revealed a strange smile. Back then, you personally killed Uchiha Itachi's teammate, awakening the Sharingan in that young one. To awaken the two-tomo Sharingan on the first try, his talent is not bad either. So, I spared his life. The mysterious masked man nodded, speaking with an air of having everything under control. That young one, Uchiha Itachi, has the potential to awaken the Mangekyo Sharingan. Just a little stimulation, and his Sharingan could evolve further. Hee! What a coincidence! The white half-face of the pitcher plant monster seemed to remember something, and suddenly became excited. Just perfect. The Chunin exam is happening in Konoha, and both Uchiha Itachi and Akahara Kagura are participating. According to the rules of the Konoha Chunin exam, during the third round, there might be a battle between Akahara Kagura and Uchiha Itachi. It's a good opportunity for us to observe the fight between the young ninja from the Uchiha clan and that young one with the wood release, to see who is more powerful. Another Chunin exam? The voice of the mysterious masked man became somewhat somber. Chunin exam, a topic ninjas can never avoid. Inside the base of the root organization, Shimura Danzo was also discussing the Chunin exam. However, when this old man mentioned the Chunin exam, his face turned as gloomy as if it were dripping water. Hey! Shimura Danzo was scolding Akahara Kagura, who had just returned to the base. You were too reckless during the Chunin exam. You should not casually reveal that you possess would release Kekkei Genkai, nor is there a need to waste chakra on using powerful jutsu. I understand. Akahara Kagura frowned, saying, So, if I don't use would release jutsu in the third round of the exam, that would be fine, right? Shimura Danzo was almost infuriated to the point of spitting blood. Using it when you shouldn't, and not using it when you should. Now that would release jutsu has already been used. What's the point in hiding it anymore? Forget it. Shimura Danzo waved his hand, somewhat helplessly saying, Since everyone already knows, there's no need to keep hiding it anymore. Oh, Akahara Kagura nodded indifferently. The third exam. Take it seriously. Shimura Danzo, looking at the boy who seemed unconcerned, said sternly, You and Uchiha Itachi are the most outstanding examinees in this session. You will definitely meet in the final round. Do not underestimate that kid. Use would release ninjutsu to defeat him, because this exam has its own political significance. Once Akahara Kagura uses would release ninjutsu to defeat the Uchiha clan's prodigy, Uchiha Itachi, it could make the Uchiha clan more compliant with the village's commands. I understand. Akahara Kagura nodded in agreement. There's one more thing. After discussing the Chunin exam, Shimura Danzo finally brought up the topic that troubled him the most. After the Chunin exam, you'll be transferred to the Umbu. Why? Akahara Kagura asked curiously. Aren't we already a part of Umbu in our root division? Why do I need to be transferred to Umbu? It's the Umbu directly under the Hokage. Shimura Danzo coldly pointed out the difference and continued, Just as the root division is loyal to me, the members of Umbu are loyal to the Hokage. Wait a minute. Akahara Kagura's expression suddenly changed, almost in disbelief as he looked up at Danzo. Lord Danzo, why suddenly transfer me to Umbu? Is this... You don't want me to continue en route. Don't want me to stay by your side anymore. Akihara Kagura seemed completely unaware of his own actions, his eyes desperately showing a hint of shock and even a hint of anger. Did someone complain about me to Lord Danzo? I only left the base for a day. When Akihara Kagura reached this point, he attempted to squeeze out 2 tears of grievance but failed, continuing sadly, "If it's because of those guys, I can promise you that I won't associate with them anymore. It's not your fault." Shimura Danzo interrupted him impatiently. Although it was indeed this kid's fault, wasn't it because this kid was too over the top during the exam? But this kid looked so pitiful, and still held loyalty to himself. However, he wasn't without options. This child would become his pawn in the umbu. "Hey, don't be sad." Shimura Danzo suddenly reached out, touching Akihara Kagura's shoulder, and asked seemingly casually, "Will you still obey my orders after joining the umbu?" "Of course." Akihara Kagura nodded quickly. When a superior asks such a question casually, it means they need a firm attitude from you. Besides quickly responding, you also need to show your determination. But that's still not enough. The best approach, of course, would be to speak ill of your superior's archenemy. Akihara Kagura frowned, a bit curiously. "By the way, I ran into the 3rd Hokage tonight. He kept talking to me about Lord Danzo." Shimura Danzo's expression immediately turned ugly, and he coldly asked, "What did that Badar, the 3rd Hokage, told you?" Chapter 37. LMAO Danzo. Shimura Danzo was very angry. People always hate it when others talk behind their back. Even Shimura Danzo was no exception, especially since the person talking about him was Sarutobi Hiruzen, the very person Danzo disliked the most in his life. When Danzo heard that Hiruzen had mentioned him to Akihara Kagura, he didn't even care to continue brainwashing Akihara Kagura. He just wanted to know what the old man had said. The 3rd Hokage didn't say anything. Akihara Kagura seemed a bit intimidated by Shimura Danzo's gaze, and quickly covered up with clumsy language to prevent his boss from getting too angry. "Tell me everything exactly as it happened." Shimura Danzo saw through Akihara Kagura's thoughts and said sternly, "Don't hide anything about tonight's events. That monkey is always hypocritical, and it's easy to be deceived by him." "Yes." Akihara Kagura slowly nodded. After passing the 2nd round of the Chunin exam, it was already late. On my way back, I encountered the 3rd Hokage and a kid named Uzumaki Naruto. The 3rd Hokage wanted me to go fishing with them. I was worried that Lord Danzo would be angry, and I just wanted to hurry back to the base. The 3rd Hokage wouldn't allow me to return, and told me that in the village, even Lord Danzo must obey his orders. As Akihara Kagura spoke, he seemed a bit sad and uneasy. "I'm worried that defying the 3rd Hokage's orders might cause trouble for Lord Danzo." "Humph." Shimura Danzo snorted coldly upon hearing this, and said coldly, "From now on, you don't have to worry about causing trouble for me. There's no one in the ninja world who can trouble me." "Yes." Akihara Kagura quickly agreed. Regardless of whether the boss was bragging or not, it's best to remember what he promised, so as not to be blamed as a subordinate when trouble arises in the future. By the way, Akihara Kagura keenly noticed that his boss seemed on the verge of getting angry, so he temporarily reversed the order of things, saying what his boss liked to hear. The 3rd Hokage also said that he and Lord Danzo are old friends. The 3rd Hokage seemed to have mentioned some past events, something about the Hokage, but I didn't quite understand. Akihara Kagura rubbed his brow, recalling and inadvertently shifting the blame, because Uzumaki Naruto, that little kid, was always making noise about wanting to become the Hokage. I might not have heard everything accurately, and I'm not sure if I remembered it wrong. Just tell me. Shimura Danzo didn't suspect that Akihara Kagura would lie. That little kid, Uzumaki Naruto, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, had indeed been indoctrinated with the ideology of the Hokage by Sarutobi Hiruzen since he was young, always clamoring about becoming the Hokage. Many people knew about this. The 3rd Hokage said, The position of Hokage is not something to be fought over, but it requires carrying the hopes and recognition of the entire village, and the responsibility of protecting the village. Even the third Hokage mentioned that Lord Danzo once wanted to compete with him to become the Hokage, but being a Hokage requires bearing the responsibility of many, and Lord Danzo felt he wasn't up to the task and responsibility of being Hokage, and later gave up on the idea. Shimura Danzo's face suddenly fell. That old fool Hiruzen. It was one thing to instill the will of fire in the village's kids, but this time he even took the opportunity to criticize himself. Who says I don't have the capability and responsibility to be the Hokage? Just let me be the Hokage, and I can take on the responsibility of Konoha and do it even better than that old monkey. I got a little angry and had an argument with them. Akahara Kagura cautiously glanced at Shimura Danzo and continued. I told them that Konoha could be without anyone, but absolutely cannot be without Lord Danzo. Only Lord Danzo can become the next Hokage of Konoha. Shimura Danzo nodded slightly. This is the moment tonight when Shimura Danzo is most satisfied. These words had always been what Shimura Danzo wanted to say himself, but he dared not say them to anyone face to face. Go on. Shimura Danzo wanted to hear more. I remember after I finished speaking. The expression on Akahara Kagura's face was a bit strange, he continued. The third Hokage's face seemed a bit scary, but he quickly started smiling again. Humph! Still so hypocritical. Shimura Danzo immediately criticized his old friend. That damn Monami. Hearing from Akahara Kagura that he would be the next Hokage and being so unhappy about it, he never really considered letting me take the position of Hokage. What else did you say? Shimura Danzo looked at Akahara Kagura, who paused a bit and continued. Hiruzen didn't talk about anything else? Like, did he ever mention who in the village could take on the responsibility of Hokage? Akahara Kagura felt that Shimura Danzo wanted to know a bit too much. Sometimes, a superior might become curious about some matters, and this curiosity could cause trouble for subordinates, so it was necessary to find a way to stop it in time. And moreover, the more you say, the easier it is to reveal flaws. Most importantly, what needed to be done today was not to sow discord, but to remind the superior that he still held a crucial leverage in his hands. Akahara Kagura wanted to tell Shimura Danzo that as long as he had this leverage, there was no need to doubt his loyalty to him after joining the Umbu. The third didn't mention those things, and it's a bit strange. Akahara Kagura furrowed his little brow, looking a bit puzzled. There was some chaos tonight. Maybe it was Uzumaki Naruto, that kid making noise. I don't know why I ended up revealing my own family secrets to the third Hokage. What? Shimura Danzo's face immediately became tense. He was still guessing how I found you. The old man finally became a bit restless, cursing under his breath. That damn monkey actually used interrogation techniques on you, trying to find out your origin. If he finds out... I only mentioned that I was from an orphanage. Akahara Kagura immediately comforted his superior and took control of the conversation again. The third Hokage already knows that I am a child from the orphanage. I was initially captured for a release human experiment. That's good. Shimura Danzo slowly nodded, his expression eased, and he quietly observed Akahara Kagura, finally recalling an important matter. This kid couldn't possibly betray him, because this kid wasn't actually a child from Konoha Orphanage, but an experimental subject from Orochimaru's side. He held his lifeline that could threaten him at any moment. Go rest. Shimura Danzo waved his hand at Akahara Kagura, his attitude turning cold, even returning to the aloof demeanor he had at their first meeting. I believe you won't disappoint me in the Umbu. Don't forget one thing. I was the one who brought you to Konoha. Chapter 38. Itachi, you really have a happy family. The goal of Akahara Kagura has been achieved. Shimura Danzo indeed does not suspect Akahara Kagura of betraying him, but this sudden air of superiority is inevitably somewhat unsatisfactory. The friendly period of amicable relations during this time seems like a facade. Akahara Kagura feels that there is something wrong with the attitude of his superior, Shimura Danzo. Once one realizes that they have always held leverage over someone, adopting an attitude of "I can crush you anytime" is problematic. Can such an approach truly inspire unwavering loyalty? Shimura Danzo does not think there is anything wrong with his attitude. This old man has controlled his subordinates using such methods for many years without any issues, so he does not see anything amiss. Ninjas, aren't they just tools to be used? As long as the tool is functional, does the method of usage really matter? Akahara Kagura looks back at Shimura Danzo, feeling that their relationship can never return to what it was before. He has ultimately become a tool for his superior. What are you still looking at? Shimura Danzo glances coldly at Akahara Kagura and says coldly, "From now on, don't refer to yourself as a... From today, you are no longer allowed to use the code name of the root." "Yes, Lord Danzo." Akahara Kagura slowly bows his head and exits the office. Although Akahara Kagura never liked the code name from the start, there's a difference between not wanting to use it and being stripped of it. If Lord Danzo's future life is too peaceful, then as a subordinate, it would be a dereliction of duty. In the following days, Shimura Danzo ignored Akahara Kagura, even canceling his exclusive ninja technique training ground, completely disregarding Akahara Kagura's feelings and treating him like an ordinary tool. The third round of the Chunin exams arrived as scheduled. As the most convenient stage to showcase the combat of genin, the exam was held in a circular training ground. The audience could watch the final round from the stands above the ground, a rare event for the villagers to witness. The families of the candidates who made it to the third round were mostly there to see how their loved ones performed. Before entering, the candidates chatted with their families and friends. The most noticeable were two individuals. One of them was Uchiha Itachi. Uchiha Itachi's father, Uchiha Fugaku, the head of the Konoha police force, was the highest in status and strength among all the families of the candidates. Father Uchiha Fugaku, mother Uchiha Makoto, younger brother Uchiha Sasuke, good friends Uchiha Shursui and Uchiha Izumi, along with some Uchiha clan members who came to join the excitement, were all at the third round of the exams to cheer for their clan's genius. Big brother Uchiha Sasuke hugged his brother's arm and pouted, "Hurry up and pass the exam. Then come practice shuriken with me." "Okay." Uchiha Itachi patted his younger brother on the head, smiling very gently. "Sasuke, don't disturb your brother." Uchiha Fugaku glanced at his younger son, surveyed the surrounding examinees, and his gaze landed on a lone figure. "That boy, is he who would release ninja, Akahara Kagura, you mentioned at home?" "Yes, Dad." Uchiha Itachi, recalling his encounter in the Forest of Death, his expression became serious. "Akahara Kagura's would release is very strong. I've never seen such an astonishing technique." That wooden dragon that seemed like a living creature. Uchiha Fugaku thought for a moment and lowered his voice. "The Uchiha clan also has techniques to counter it, but unfortunately, the level of your Sharingan is not high enough. That child..." Uchiha Mikoto glanced at Akahara Kagura in the distance and frowned slightly. "Does he have no family or friends?" "He is Danzo's subordinate." Uchiha Fugaku had already learned some information about Akahara Kagura from his son and spoke coldly. "Danzo's subordinates are only skilled in killing and completing missions. Raised from a young age, naturally, they wouldn't have any family due to his status." Uchiha Fugaku had to show superficial respect to Danzo, but he knew that Shimura Danzo always harbored hostility towards the Uchiha clan. Having such a powerful would-release ninja among Danzo's subordinates was not a good thing for their clan, obviously intended to be used against them. Everyone knew would-release had once defeated the Uchiha. Itachi defeat him. Uchiha Fugaku placed his hand on his son's shoulder. Uchiha Itachi nodded solemnly, in a manner beyond his years. The third exam gave them a few days of rest. Uchiha Itachi already knew that Akahara Kagura was a powerful would-release ninja, so he naturally wouldn't waste his time. He specially requested the help of his good friend Uchiha Shursui to assist him in his training. Big brother will definitely win. Uchiha Sasuke clung to his brother's arm, refusing to let go, and proudly shouted, "No one can be Big Brother's opponent." Uchiha Sasuke's voice was a bit loud, inevitably drawing the attention of other contestants, and many people turned their eyes towards them. All examinees, enter the arena. The proctor for the third exam had arrived. The proctor for the third exam was named Shiranui Genma, who liked to keep a senbon in his mouth as a toothpick, giving off a somewhat nonchalant appearance. A group of examinees bid farewell to their friends and family and strode into the exam venue, but slowed down a bit when they saw Uchiha Itachi and Akahara Kagura falling slightly behind. That would release Kid is too strong. Even if we advance, we can't possibly be his opponent. It doesn't matter. Our teacher told us not to worry about winning or losing. The examiners won't grade us based on victory or defeat, but on our performance in battle. To judge whether we have the qualifications to be promoted to Chunin, we just need to do our best. It seems we still have hope. At the front of the line, Akahara Kagura and Uchiha Itachi walked side by side. Uchiha Itachi glanced at Akahara Kagura and suddenly said, "I'm sorry, but I have to win this time. I have reasons I can't lose." "It's okay." Akahara Kagura seemed quite casual, as if he didn't care about winning or losing the exam, but brought up someone outside the venue. "Is it because your younger brother believes you can win?" "Yes." Uchiha Itachi nodded, saying solemnly, "I don't want to disappoint Dad, and I can't let Sasuke down. I have to make his words come true. You seem to have a good relationship with your family." Akahara Kagura slowly praised and exclaimed, "Looking at it now, it really is a happy family." "Thank you." Uchiha Itachi's attitude immediately became gentler. Chapter 39. Who would win? Would release or Sharingan? Please confirm your opponent. Shiranui Genma held a list for all the examinees to see. In the third stage of the exam, there were a total of 8 teams. Apart from Uchiha Itachi and Akahara Kagura, the rest of the teams were fully staffed with 3 members each. The entire competition was divided into 3 rounds, from 8 to 4, from 4 to 2, and then the final showdown. Coincidentally, Akahara Kagura and Uchiha Itachi were placed in 2 separate halves of the bracket, meaning these 2 individual participants in the Chunin exam had to beat 2 3-person teams in the first 2 rounds to face each other. Done for. We have to face that kid in the first round. Don't panic. We haven't wasted these past few days for nothing. Everyone has learned new ninjutsu, and there might still be a chance to turn defeat into victory. The team that faced Akahara Kagura in the first round immediately became the center of attention. All the teams present had seen Akahara Kagura's performance in the Forest of Death, and each team believed their chances of defeating him were very low. We're facing that kid in the second round. Damn, we're the ones facing that kid in the second round. The 2 teams that might face Akahara Kagura in the second round became the center of attention. How about you all go together? Akahara Kagura couldn't help but respond. In these small matters, Akahara Kagura was always happy to help. "Hey, Proctor, can you let those 3 teams go up together? Other teams that want to fight me can come up together too." The faces of the examinees present turned sour. No. Shiranui Genma quickly rejected this proposal. As the main proctor of the exam, Shiranui Genma had already learned from his friends Enko and Yamashiro Aoba about an important matter. A kid named Akahara Kagura was a big trouble in the Chunin exam and needed special attention. The focus of this exam is not on winning or losing. Shiranui Genma scanned the people present and once again interpreted the meaning of the third exam. Even the winner may not be promoted, and even the loser may be successfully promoted. The purpose of the assessment is to examine the tactics of your teams. Understood? The minds of the group of examinees gradually settled down. The first exam happened to be the Akahara Kagura contest. As soon as the chief examiner announced the exam, the 3 ninjas of the opponent quickly threw out shurikens, trying to stop Akahara Kagura from forming hand seals. As long as we stop this kid from forming seals. Would release. Advent of a world of flowering trees. Akahara Kagura had already closed his fingers. Roots drilled out from the ground, quickly growing into 3 huge trees. The 3 gigantic trees swiftly extended countless vines and branches towards the 3 opposing ninjas, rapidly binding the enemies to the tree trunks. Why? Such a powerful ninjutsu. He just need to form one hand seal. It's impossible to stop it in time, unless we directly break his jutsu. The 3 opponents looked at Akahara Kagura, who hadn't moved a step, with despair and frustration on their faces, unable to understand why the other's ninjutsu was so simple. The winner, Akahara Kagura. Shiranui Gema announced the winner with a frown. There was a stir in the entire audience. No one had ever seen such a simple but powerful ninjutsu. Especially those ninjas who had created ninjutsu themselves felt it more profoundly. Is all would release ninjutsu like this? In the audience, Yamashiro Aoba looked at Akahara Kagura below, somewhat dumbfounded. Just need to form one hand seal to release such a level of jutsu? Actually the power of the jutsu can be even greater. Mitarashi Anko stood beside Yamashiro Aoba, nonchalantly continuing. When I first saw it, I was also taken aback by that kid's would release. These genin candidates. Then, Aoba looked at the other candidates with a similar glance, slowly continuing. Probably none of them is a match for him if this ninjutsu doesn't consume much chakra. Tenzo, Hataki Kakashi, looking at Tenzo standing beside him, asked, I remember you also have a similar technique. Seems like your technique covers a wider range. No, it's not like that. With a drop of cold sweat on his forehead, Tenzo shook his head. That technique is a simplified version of the first Hokage's would release, Advent of a World of Flowering Trees, called would release, Nativity of a Sea of Trees. It's far inferior in both hand seal steps and power, as I couldn't learn the original technique. So I had to reduce the power of my version. Theoretically speaking, he has already successfully learned this technique, and it's even stronger than mine. Would release is activated by the life energy of chakra, and I can sense the life energy in the field, which is much denser than my would release. This technique, it was also taught to Tenzo by Shimura Danzo. Unfortunately, Tenzo couldn't learn it, and only managed to reproduce the effect of the original technique by developing his own would release Kekkei Genkai based on his understanding. Turning his head to look at Hataki Kakashi, Tenzo's face was somewhat pale. Kakashi-senpai, this kid's talent in would release is actually much stronger than mine. Maybe you should consider it. Keep it up. You can do it. Hataki Kakashi calmly patted Tenzo on the shoulder. Not only were the people in the spectator stands astonished, but the faces of the candidates on the field also looked ugly. After all, a powerful ninjutsu that can be cast with a single hand sign was like a dimension-reducing strike for these genin candidates. After the first round, only 4 teams were left in the field. However, the next team that had to face Kagura Akahara's team had already lost their confidence. The reason this team was left wasn't that they performed well, but because their opponents in the previous match performed worse. Perhaps this technique consumes a lot of chakra, but in the Forest of Death, this kid didn't seem to be short of chakra. He even had another technique that could summon a wooden dragon. Don't lose heart. A genin ninja looked at his 2 teammates with some dismay, trying hard to persuade them. Although we are bound to lose this round, maybe our performance in the last battle will allow us to advance. Second round, for into 2. In the second round, Akahara Kagura's opponent, this team's encounter was exactly the same as the previous round's opponent, easily hung up on a tree. Compared to Akahara Kagura's quick match, the battle between Uchiha Itachi and another team was much more interesting, attracting cheers from the audience. Even though Uchiha Itachi's battle with the opponent ended in a crushing manner, he eliminated the other team's 3 members using taijutsu, ninjutsu, and genjutsu. Even the third Hokage, sitting in the main spectator stand, praised Uchiha Itachi for fighting beautifully. Third round, 2 decide 1. The entire arena fell silent. No one had expected that in the Chunin exam, such a situation would arise. 2 solo participants in the Chunin exam turned out to be the final opponents. Moreover, these 2 youngsters were of the same age. Both of these youngsters possessed top Kekkei Genkai in the ninja world. In the audience, someone let out a sigh, which resonated with many others. Once possessing the wood release ability, the first Hokage Hashirama, once possessing the Sharingan, the ninja Ashura Uchiha Madara. These 2 youngsters standing here, it feels like they resemble those 2 legendary figures from history, like a reincarnation of fate. In the audience, there seemed to be a lot of dissatisfaction with the Uchiha clan, and some even started discussing history. Maybe their outcome should be the same as in history. Uchiha Itachi is unlikely to be a match for wood release. Impossible. Big brother will definitely win. Sitting next to his mother, Uchiha Sasuke protested loudly. The little boy's noisy voice was loud. That guy will definitely not be a match for Big Brother. Chapter 40. Akahara Kagura. This is the background I created. Little Sasuke's noisy voice was very loud, because he had been brought up by his big brother since childhood, and had always been taught to cultivate by his big brother. Even after seeing the terror would release, Sasuke did not want to believe that his brother would lose. The people in the audience seats all turned their attention to the noisy kid. Uchiha Fugaku gave his younger son a glare, which quickly settled Sasuke down. Before the start of the 3rd round of the competition, Akahara Kagura stood on the stage, glanced at the somewhat lively audience seats, and then turned to face Uchiha Itachi on the opposite side. Your brother seems to have a lot of confidence in you. That is why I cannot lose. Uchiha Itachi looked at Akahara Kagura with an extremely serious expression in his eyes. If there was one person in this world who could make Uchiha Itachi give up everything, it would definitely be his younger brother, Uchiha Sasuke. He did not want to let his brother down. Although he knew very little about wood release, especially after having witnessed Akahara Kagura's wooden dragon technique ravaging the forest of death, Uchiha Itachi was very clear that this battle was destined to be difficult, and he must exert all his efforts in this battle, because his younger brother was watching all of this from the audience stand. Is that so? A bit coincidental. I also have reasons that I cannot lose. Akahara Kagura looked at Uchiha Itachi, the smile on his face growing thicker. If I lose to you, Lord Danzo will completely abandon me. What do you mean? Uchiha Itachi frowned. You wouldn't understand. You are highly sought after in the light, while I have always been abandoned in the darkness. Once, I was taken in by an orphanage, thinking I had found a home, but I was captured and brought to a dark laboratory, and the director completely forgot about me. Later, Lord Danzo took me in, and in order to stay by his side, I had to do everything he asked of me, and yet he still chose to abandon me. The smile on Akahara Kagura's face gradually became more desolate, making it somewhat unbearable to listen to. Even though I have already done enough to be outstanding, even though I haven't done anything wrong, Uchiha Itachi was somewhat puzzled. Because of you. Akahara Kagura spread his hands, his eyes gradually filling with a hint of cruelty. Only now do I realize something. Lord Danzo always wanted me to defeat you, because in the forest of death, I defeated everyone. Only you escaped my hunt, and he sent me to the Umbu. Sorry. Uchiha Itachi couldn't help but frown and said, I didn't know, and even if I had known, I would still have had to do my best to pass that test. It's okay. Akahara Kagura slowly shook his head, seemingly indifferent to the past, but his smile became increasingly grim. Anyway, now I can correct the mistakes of the past. As long as I can correct my mistakes, as long as I can defeat you in this test, I will surely get Lord Danzo to take me back. Uchiha Itachi remained silent, not knowing how to respond. Should he tell the truth, that Shimura Danzo is not worth following? That would probably only make his current opponent even more furious. Hey! Shiranui Genma's face looked somewhat unpleasant. Biting on his samban, he continued, You two kids, pay attention to the rules of the match. If you kill your opponent, you won't be deemed to have passed this test either. It doesn't matter. Akahara Kagura shook his head unconcerned and continued. This Chunin exam is already meaningless to me. If Uchiha Itachi dies here, it will only prove that his life was too short. Perhaps his death will allow others to go further in their lives. Shiranui Genma's forehead aches a bit. Just when this little kid had been doing well in the previous 2 rounds of the competition, why suddenly stir up trouble now, adopting an attitude as if wanting to kill someone? In the audience, many ninjas could also read lips. Many people present clearly understood that the last match might be a matter of life and death, which inevitably caused some concern in their hearts. The third Hokage, Sarutobi Hiruzen, was undoubtedly one of them. Sarutobi Hiruzen understood the lip reading of Akahara Kagura and was somewhat resentful, blaming Shimura Danzo for being too despicable, even if it meant handing over the child to the Umbu to create trouble. Akahara Kagura, a child with an already extreme heart, became even darker due to an abandonment, making it even harder to correct the child's mentality. Shursui, a 10-year-old girl, Uchiha Izumi, sat next to Uchiha Shursui, speaking with a worried face. Itachi will definitely win, right? Itachi is the best. Uchiha Shursui slowly nodded. This was just Uchiha Shursui comforting Uchiha Izumi. As an excellent ninja, Uchiha Shursui could see that there was a gap between Akahara Kagura and Uchiha Itachi, and that the current Uchiha Itachi would have difficulty defeating the opponent. Uchiha Shursui understood more than Uchiha Izumi. He knew from Uchiha Itachi's mouth that the opponent still had an even more terrifying move, the Wooden Dragon Jutsu. If Akahara Kagura really intended to kill Uchiha Itachi, it could very well put Uchiha Itachi's life in danger. The match begins. Shiranui Genma's voice echoed throughout the arena. As the sound of the match beginning emerged, the 2 little kids in the arena almost simultaneously moved, with Uchiha Itachi throwing 4 shuriken and disappearing from the spot in an instant. Wood release. Advent of a world of flowering trees. Akahara Kagura instantly raised his fingers. A root swiftly sprouted, blocking in front of Akahara Kagura, also blocking Uchiha Itachi's shuriken. Roots drilled out from the ground. Giant trees, along with the spread of roots, grew rapidly within the arena, in the blink of an eye covering the entire stage, and transforming the exam stage into an ancient forest. Uchiha Itachi once witnessed Akahara Kagura controlling giant trees to attack the enemy, and he was very aware that these giant trees were all under the control of Akahara Kagura's chakra. He dared not stay in any place, only to dodge the tree roots and vines ambush in the forest. No geographical advantage. Uchiha Itachi's figure leaped through the forest. His eyes instantly turned into a blood red, using the Sharingan to observe all the attack trajectories of the tree roots and vines within his sight, looking for a temporary landing spot for his short jumps. The next moment, Uchiha Itachi's face suddenly changed, because all the branches and vines of the giant trees in the forest were converging upwards. The huge chakra reaction almost left people breathless, and everyone in the examination area knew that a dangerous technique was about to appear here. Although a single technique could defeat you, it might be a bit troublesome. Akahara Kagura's voice seemed a bit leisurely, slowly continuing. If it's a battle between Wood Release and the Sharingan, it seems that we should use a more shocking method. Wood Release, Wooden Dragon Technique. The trunks of the giant trees kept growing into the sky, turning into huge vines intertwined together, forming a giant wooden dragon raising its head proudly. This wooden dragon was hundreds of meters long, and its sheer size seemed like it could destroy the entire field at any moment, making it somewhat heart-pounding to watch. A huge vine extended towards the wood dragon. Akahara Kagura stepped onto the vine, his gaze fixed ahead, stepping slowly and firmly onto the top of the wooden dragon's head.